Hi, everyone. Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. And welcome to the 2023 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference organized by the Faura Project Incorporated.
We're honored to have you all here today to celebrate the rich cultural and historical heritage of Ermita and its shared traditions within the Philippine archipelago and for this conference in the greater Southeast Asian region.
Well, just to give you a bit of a background on the organizing team, the Faura Project is an organization of faculty, current students, alumni, and friends of the University of the Philippines, Manila, all bound by common cause to revive, revitalize, and sustain this heritage.
We have a really great lineup of speakers today who will be sharing their expertise on various topics related to Southeast Asian culture.
But before we formally begin, let's direct our attention to the screen for the Philippine National Anthem.
Kayang magiliw, telas ng sinakanan, alam ng puso, sa dikit mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, kuya ka ng magiting, sa manlulupin, di ka pasisingil, sa nagatak tutok sa simoy at sa langit mong pagaw, ay hinatang tulad, awit sa pagkayang minamahal. Matawad mo'y tagumpay na nag-iibig, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may di magdidinig. Lumalang araw ng walhaging pagsinta, buhay langit sa piling mo. Ang inigaya na pagkay mag-aamig, ang mamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Thank you, Jappy. Okay, so Corrie, before we continue the program, let's introduce ourselves. So hi, everyone. I'm Charisse, one of your hosts for this morning's program. I'm an alumni of the BA Philippine Arts program and a proud member of the Faura Project.
And also, hi everyone, I'm Corrie and I am a current third-year Philippine Arts student from the University of the Philippines, Manila.
Okay, so now to formally open our week-long conference, let's hear from our director and founder of the Faura Project, Dr. Honey Libertine Achanzar-Labor. Let's give her a warm round of applause.
All right. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the 2023 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference, organized by the Faura Project with the University of the Philippines, Manila, and with the support of the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, and of course, the technical team of Saling Lahi, the home organization of the BA Philippine Arts, Cultural Heritage, and Arts Management Program majors in UP Manila. With the assistance of Saling Lahi, we are going live stream this year, through FB Live and YouTube. So the Faura Project is an organization open to everyone interested in heritage conservation. But as its founding members are faculty, students, and alumni of the University of the Philippines, Manila, it considers UP Manila as its home unit. So the primary thrust of the organization is heritage conservation in the area environed by Ermita, which includes the street that we now call as Padre Faura. So the organization prides itself, though, for addressing heritage in its most comprehensive sense, as we address each year issues related to both tangible and intangible cultural heritage, as well as those related to natural and biocultural heritage, since heritage indeed matters, as this year's theme goes. So all of these elements and aspects of heritage are addressed to our annual Flores de Mayo Festival, as we present each year cultural as well as natural heritage icons and their advocates. So what makes this year's opening plenary unique is that it situates the Philippine heritage in the context of Southeast Asia. And as we also explore how our understanding of the Southeast Asian region deepens our appreciation of what is local. So aside from the conference that begins our week-long festival, we have our usual Memories of Faura video premieres, and one video on our Empowered Women, Empowered Ermita program, which will be posted in our official Facebook page on Wednesday. So we will also be having 4 on-site heritage trail walks spread throughout the week, open to all our conference participants. So I think there are still slots available upon registration. So we'll also have an online digital floral art workshop on Thursday. And of course, our culminating event, the Dress Up Santa Cruzan at 7 p.m. on Friday, inspired by the traditional Santa Cruzan, an intangible cultural heritage that all Filipinos cherish. So registration to all these events are still accessible through a link in the Faura Project Facebook page. So having said this, I, in behalf of all the members of the Faura Project, declare that the 2023 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference now officially open. So once again, good day to all, and I hope you get to experience our mix of online and on-site events this week. Okay, maraming salamat po.
Thank you so much, Dr. Achanzar-Labor. I've personally been a member of the Faura Project for 3 years now, and it's been the greatest joy participating in community projects, educational conferences, and simply celebrating heritage in general. So again, thank you so much, Dr. Achanzar-Labor. Okay, now to introduce our first guest of honor for this opening program, we have Professor J. Dalit. So Professor Dalit is the chair of the Department of Biology in the University of the Philippines, Manila. So again, let's all welcome Professor Dalit.
Good morning to all of you. It's a great pleasure to introduce the welcome address speaker for this year's Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference. Dr. Maria Constancia Carillo is a professor of biochemistry at the Department of Physical Sciences and Mathematics, and currently serves as Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. She obtained her Bachelor of Science in Molecular Biology and Biotechnology from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and received her Doctor of Philosophy in Biochemistry from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. She currently teaches biochemistry and molecular biology courses to BS biochemistry majors, and her current research focuses on the development of natural product-based drugs against COVID-19 using computational approaches. Ladies and gentlemen, a warm round of applause for Dr. Maria Constancia Carillo.
Thank you so much, Jay, for the kind introduction, and good morning, everyone. Good morning to all our guests, speakers, and participants. I am grateful to all of you for taking the time to join us in the opening program for the 2023 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference, a 4-day virtual celebration of the cultural and biophysical heritage in Ermita and related traditions. It is the beautiful month of May, so it's peak of summer, but also of beautiful blooms, fiestas, and other beloved traditions all across the country. The demands of living are such that we usually take for granted the beauty and cultural heritages all around us, but floral heritage, for example, reminds us that there's beauty to be found everywhere and every time. As we finally transition to our new normal and the pandemic-induced periods of self-isolation and social distancing become but a memory, and I hope forever, I am nevertheless reminded that, for example, a lot of us found solace and happiness in tending to our plants and finding our inner plantitos and plantitas. Now, as the fire trees start to bloom, I am reminded as well of some of my fondest childhood memories, like joining Flores de Mayo in our hometown, offering flowers gathered in our neighborhood to Mama Mary in a children's church service. And of course, every young girl's dream was to someday be Reina Elena or one of those beautiful lasses walking under flower-bedecked arches in the annual Santa Cruzan. Indeed, cultural heritage, including our floral heritage, unifies us all, paying no mind to race and creed, and reminds us of the need to preserve our culture, both the intangible cultural traditions as well as our physical heritage, especially here in our very own Ermita district in the heart of Manila. We really have so much history around us if we only take a closer look. And I am therefore very grateful for the hard work of the Faura project, spearheaded by Dr. Labor of the College of the Philippine Arts Program, Department of Arts and Communications, for bringing us together in this celebration of our heritage. And I'd also like to welcome our esteemed speakers who will share with us their knowledge on the biophysical heritage of Manila, insights on heritage icons in Southeast Asia and cultural heritage conservation, as well as orient us on issues in Philippine heritage laws. And of course, our students and guests for their active participation in this year's Faura project. So again, good morning, everyone, and let us enjoy this celebration. Thank you.
Well, now, without further ado, let's welcome Professor Adeva, who will introduce our esteemed guests. Professor Alice Adeva earned her Master of Arts in Speech Communication in UP Diliman. She's currently the chair of the Department of Arts and Communication in the University of the Philippines, Manila. Let's welcome Professor Adeva.
Hi, good morning. There might have been a slight misunderstanding. I'm supposed to introduce the Chancellor. Is she already here in the room? Levy.
Okay, we'll double check.
Wasn't I assigned to introduce the Chancellor?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
okay.
not the guest speakers, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Is the Chancellor here, Corrie?
I
Parang wala.
I don't see her in the participants
Wala
list.
pa, no? Sige. We'll just
She isn't here yet.
All right. Okay, so Corrie, we'll just get back to Professor Alice Adeva once the Chancellor arrives. We can now proceed to the speakers.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Adeva. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for Professor Dalet and for Professor Adeva, though our Chansey is not here yet. Well, thank you very much for gracing our program with your presence.
So, but before we proceed with the program, we would just like to take a moment to recognize our speakers by presenting them with certificates of appreciation.
Wala pa si Chancellor.
Yeah, but we can continue with the giving of the certificates for you and the dean.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, so first, we have the certificate for Dean Maria Constancia Carrillo for delivering the welcome address during the 2023 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference opening program, given the second day of May 2023 during the 2023 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference.
Thank you.
And next we have the certificate of appreciation to Dr. Libertine Achanzar-Labor for also delivering the opening remarks during the 2023 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference opening program, given today, the second day of May 2023, during the 2023 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference.
All right.
Thank you so much to the Dean and to Dr. Libertine Achanzar-Labor. All right. Okay, so let's keep the ball rolling with our first speaker of the day. So we would like to invite Dr. Libertine Achanzar-Labor back to the podium to tell us more about the Southeast NILAD. So Dr. Libertine Achanzar-Labor is a professor of Cultural Heritage and Arts Management for the BA Philippine Arts Program in the University of the Philippines, Manila. She has a Bachelor of Arts in the Humanities Art History degree and received her Master's and Doctor of Philosophy in Philippine Studies from the University of the Philippines, Diliman in 2005. She was conferred the title of University Artist through the Arts Productivity Program of the University of the Philippines System, acknowledging her contributions to research, publication, and promotion of cultural heritage. She's the founding executive director of the Faura Project, an organization that promotes heritage conservation in Ermita, Manila. She's also a 3-time recipient of the 1 UP Professorial Chair Award. She has published book chapters, journal articles, and essays on the themes of heritage conservation, ethnic art and indigenous knowledge systems, biocultural heritage, and medical anthropology. She currently serves as board secretary for UP Manila's Research Ethics Board. So let's all give her a virtual round of applause.
All right, thank you, Cha. Okay, let me just share my screen. Keynote. Where's my keynote? Oh, there. Oh, sorry for that. Stop share. Oh, there. No, it was the right one. Once again, I'll just share my screen. Okay. Okay, do you see my screen? Cha?
Yes,
Okay,
clear.
all right, just play it. Okay, so magandang umaga po muli sa lahat. No? So let me present my paper and take wear a different hat. No? Okay, so the Southeast Asian NIDA. All right. So for the 20th araw ng Maynila, the 449th anniversary of the city, the Department of Tourism, Metro Manila, supported it to publish on their web. No? The word Manila was derived from the phrase Maynilad, which refers to the nilad, no? A white flower shrub, which once grew abundantly along the banks of Manila Bay and the Pasig River. In support of the event, the National Museum of the Philippines wrote on its online platform that although there are varying bases for the toponym Manila, one of the most popular is the Hispanized contracted version of the term Maynila. So the Saifi Faura hydrophilacea, commonly known as Nila or Nilad, is a native mangrove species that can grow up to 9 meters. Its flowers are white, pinkish in color, and it bears 8-millimeter long yellow-brown berries. We will see it in the Flores de Filipinas, published in 1837. We see it in the list, no? Included in the list, no? That we see your nilad, and which is translated as your yamstick mangrove. Ambet Ocampo and Carmen Nakpil Guerrero have said, though, that the said mangrove is really called nila and may have been popularized as nilad by people unfamiliar with the plant. So, but either way, it is possible to attribute the toponym to the Nila or Nilad mangrove, since Manila has a splendid bay. It once had a lot of esteros, and accounts indicate that mangroves used to grow along Pasig River. So the distribution of the Sitaphora hydrophilacea is widespread, from India, Sri Lanka, and southern China to the West Pacific, New Guinea, and northern Australia, and Southeast Asia. Its local common names include nilat or sagasa in the Philippines, ngang in Thailand, kwai in Vietnam, and ngayam in Malaysia. In Borneo, several local names have been noted: Gerenting puti, jumbo jumbo, landing landing, randing randing, etc. No? So the roots of the nilad mangrove have pneumatophores, no? Specialized root structures that grow out from the water's surface and facilitate the aeration necessary for root respiration by in hydrophytic trees such as many mangrove species. Being a mangrove, the nilad tree helps provide natural infrastructure to help protect nearby populated areas by reducing erosion and absorbing storm surge impact during extreme weather events such as hurricane. No? They're also important to the ecosystem. Their dense roots help bind and build soils. As it is in the case of all mangrove trees, needed plants are halophytes, plants that thrive in salty conditions. They have the ability to grow where no other tree can, thereby making significant contributions that benefit the coastal ecology. Their coverage of shoreline and wetlands provides many diverse species of birds, mammals, crustacea, and fish, a unique, irreplaceable habitat. So as a mangrove, the needed plant also preserves water quality and reduce pollution by filtering suspended material and assimilating dissolved nutrients. So the plant was once abundant along the Pasig River and Manila, and as such is considered to be one of the origins of the city's name. So the propagation of the needed mangrove has even become part of the environmental thrust of the city government of Manila. But we see the case here that we have problems when it comes to the presence of mangroves in the Philippines. We have here the case of missing mangroves due to an airport project. On the right is an image of mangroves in Manila Bay with pollutants, making it a hindrance from some fauna to thrive. And we see here a UP group saying that mangroves, not dolomite. They see them pushing for suggesting instead of dolomite, why not just plant more mangroves? So there's a trust with the local government has been doing their part, but the group says more, do much more, a lot more can be done. So of course, in Manila, there's a Manila drive to revive the needed plant population in the city, supported by the DENR, the Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, and it's clear that the Manila has also been used to strengthen pride of place among the citizens of the city of Manila. So earlier we were showing that we saw it as part of at the same time we see here as becomes a tool for strengthening pride of place. So for the 2020 so these for the 2022, but in 2020 way back, it's for the year 2020 that we started to also have, together with the celebration of Manila, Araw ng Maynila, the rendering of the Nilad Festival. So again, it's just to further the pride of place among the citizens of Manila. So, and the Faura project is also, okay, we see here also the coin, the cypher, Hira, kind of lache, on a 20 peso coin. And we see it also face, using the Nilad as inspiration. And okay. And the Faura project has also collaborated with Barangay 669 Ermita in its Empowered Women, Empowered Ermita program, a skill training program for women in Ermita that incorporates talks on heritage, on art process, and biocultural heritage. So heritage is in fact incorporated in every craft that is taught. In 2020, this was last year. The focus was on the Nilad mangroves. So these are some of the workshops, skills training for the women in Ermita, conducted by the Faura project. And you see here the Nilad flower on the left, which is the inspiration for the crafts, that the women are doing or were made to do. And this is for this year. And for this year, for March, we still see them making use of the Nilad flower, the mangrove, some of their output. But in April of this year, we started to introduce to them another plant. Okay, so as stated earlier, the National Museum recognizes the possibility of other bases for the toponym Manila. So in this conference, I shall be presenting another plant which may be considered for its potential for strengthening Southeast Asian ties. I am referring to the Indigofera tinctoria, the indigo plant, which is also called Nida, or in the up north, it's Tayum or Matayum. Concretely, its relevance lies on the following. First, the cultivation and use of the indigo plant will be presented as a shared tradition among countries in Southeast Asia, even before the advent of the European to the region. Second, that Manila was named as such even before the coming of the Spaniards, even before the Spaniards declared it as a royal city. In fact, it was called Maynila, probably due to the shared tradition amongst the people of Southeast Asia towards the plant. We may recall that the Datu or the polity heads of Manila had relations with Borneo by blood and through trade and exchange of goods. And the indigo plant abounds in Borneo up to this day. Third, the retaining of the name Manila after the Legazpi conquest and using it in the royal declaration of Manila as a royal city indicates their high regard towards Manila and the pride of having conquered, quote unquote, the stronghold. And lastly, fourth, Joseph Baumgartner asserts that from a linguistic perspective, it would have been unlikely for native Tagalog speakers to completely drop the final consonant B in Nilad to achieve the present native form of the name, Maynila. No? It is possible then that the city's name is derived from another plant that is indeed referred to as Nila in Tagalog, the indigo plant, no? The Indigofera tinctoria. So the indigo in Southeast Asia. So there are many variations and substrains of plants containing the chemical precursor of indigo dye or indican. There are three primary species with distinctive formal traits and high pigment production. So each species that contain indican has its distinctive physical characteristics and methods of pigment extraction. The indigo dye's chemical makeup is the same for all, but the potency of the pigment extracted may vary depending on the species itself and how healthy the plant is for producing pigment. So the most widely utilized indigo-bearing species is Indigofera tinctoria, also known as tropical indigo. It is a perennial plant that thrives in most tropical and subtropical regions of the world. It is a shrub or subshrub of the pea family with a maximum height of around 6.5 feet, native to India, but also found in Egypt, Africa, and Southeast Asia. So historical records confirms that the indigo plant's presence in Southeast Asia can be traced back prior to Western expansion. The attribution to India as the earliest global source of indigo dye may probably be due to the fact that India alone has developed the process of pressing indigo dye into cake cubes, dried and powdered, making it easy for export. Now, they were the first ones who would have this technology, no? Previous to the Western expansion. Of course, eventual exchange of goods. Wait, so here, this is the cubes. Yeah, online it's still available. Yes, no? So we see here an indigo factory, no? In Bengal. We see how prolific, how huge the production is, no? In India, and thus which makes them renowned, no? So, but of course, eventual exchange of goods and procedural learnings, such as dyeing techniques between countries in South Asia and India, also took place. So, okay, Pekalongan, together with Lasem and Solo in the island of Java, Indonesia, are part of a network of 3 cities that produce batik tiga negeri, a type of batik that makes use of indigo largely. Batik is a dyeing method common in Indonesia and Malaysia that uses wax over patterns to resist colors. Historically, the process involves the batik cloth. We see this on the seal on the right. Well, the batik cloth traveling to the 3 different towns in Java and dyed according to their signature colors. Red in Lasem, brown in Solo, and in Pekalongan, indigo. So located in the north coast of Java, Pekalongan, which is a UNESCO World-winning city, was not only the gateway through which the indigo arrived in Indonesia, but was once the largest indigo exporter in Southeast Asia. Oh yeah, listen on the seal aside from batik, there is the chanti, which is used in batik development. So these are the batik, no? The batik in this part of Indonesia. Okay, and then we see the Ikat of the Ngada people in Central Flores, also in Indonesia, very different from the other parts of Indonesia, as they were not so influenced by traders of European and Indian trade colors. So the most popular designs were small white horses and triangles with other geometric shapes on dark, deep navy or black indigo background. So there are design motifs here, which reminds us also of some of our ethnic groups. But in Flores, just as in Sumba, the horse symbol is an obvious signifier of wealth. So that is still in Flores, these in Sumba, and they also have the horse motif there, in Sumba. And then in Bali, we see that they have their own batik, they have their own indigo dyeing tradition as well, but they've really launched into doing at the forefront of conducting workshops for indigo use. So okay, Cambodia. So Cambodian silk ikat textiles were once considered the finest in the world. The industry is making a revival after a decline in the 1970s. And since 2018, the local industry has been producing sufficient indigo dyes to include it in their textile designs. Vietnam. Among communities in Vietnam, Lao, PDR, Myanmar, and Thailand maintain strong natural dyeing traditions. Hemp is used to make a fabric which is tinted with indigo that is so dark that it looks almost black. For some tribes, the darker the indigo, the more priced is the cloth. Ibig sabihin talagang generous yung amount ng indigo. So high in the hills above Sapa in Vietnam, the Hmong people still make dye out of indigofera plants that are indigenous to Vietnam. So these plants, with their broad green leaves and barely purple flowers, are scattered on the hillside near their homes. And typically, the Hmongs yield the crop twice a year. The leaves of the indigofera plant are harvested and fermented with various additives, such as rice wine, even urine, or lye. So when the fermentation process is complete, the leaves are extracted. So they are then allowed to oxidize in open air. So dried leaves can be ground into powder and paste and stored, or paste rather, and stored until it is time to use the fabric on the fabric, the mixture on the fabric. So yes, so we see there's some of the black clothing that's actually made out of indigo dye. So the people of Salon, Nakhon, Thailand have perfected indigo dyeing to an art, making it a local industry. So Sakon, Nakhon in northeastern Thailand is known as a source of high quality indigo dyed cloth with attractive and colorful patterns. Weaving cotton clothes and dyeing indigo is a common activity for people in Sakon, Nakhon province. Once only a seasonal job for extra income, making indigo clothes has become a major source of income for the villagers who produce indigo dyed clothes and grow true indigo in large plantations for domestic use and for sale. So the plant is a lifeline for the people and has become a treasure of Sakon, Nakhon. Lao PDR. So indigo is prominent in the suet pat, a traditional long-sleeved shirt worn by women in Lao People's Democratic Republic. So the fascine, a woman's ceremonial skirt, also uses an indigo base, which illustrates the beautiful zigzag weaving patterns. Indigo designs using indigo, or intricate designs using indigo threads feature in Brunei Jerusalem's and Malaysia's woven fabric as well. So the fabric is used in kain samping, which forms part of the traditional and contemporary Malay attire. And the Philippines. Okay, so we go back to the Philippines. Finally, indigo once again. It's dye derived from fermenting the leaves was one of the Philippines' first major export products, carried on galleons and sold to Europeans who desired the wide range of blue tones as natural dyeing material for their fabrics. And among the most prominent of the ethno-linguistic groups in the Philippines who work with indigo are the Ininays in Central Cordillera. Information on the Isinays, local history and cultural practices has not been well documented and has been passed down only through oral tradition. The Ubes Penutan blanket, otherwise known as kinutian or aladang in the Cordillera, is one of the few remaining pieces of Ininay material culture and a service platform for heritage conservation in Abra. So the US pinituan is produced in an intricate process of ikat technique, indigo dyeing, and backstrap loom weaving. The Mangyans were once the only inhabitants of Mindoro. The traditional textiles are handmade and are woven on a backstrap loom. They are still used in the Mangyan villages as clothing and for carrying babies. Their textiles are dyed in indigo blue. Soft and lightweight hand-woven scarves from the Hanunoot, Mangyan in Mindoro. No? These ramit scarves are deep indigo and white with subtle geometric patterns. Tausug. The Tausug or Sulok are an ethnic group of the Philippines and Malaysia. A small population can be found in the northern part of North Kalimantan in Indonesia. So the Tausug refers to the people of the Sea Current, a large Muslim group now dispersed all over Mindanao, the Visayas, and parts of Malaysia and Indonesia. They are known for their love of colors, red, violet, or some indigo, orange, and green. So contemporary use include table runner, wall hanging, and as apparent accent. So the Tausug kambut or bandit are long, or bandit, sorry, are long sashes worn as a belt or draped diagonally on their chest, like the piece or headcloth. They are signature Tausug textiles because of their recognizable design integrity. Detail of the Tausug piece. So you can imagine how detailed. So there's like a horror vacui or fear of space. That every we see here. How do you call this? Enlarged. And zoomed up. The design pattern of the Tausug piece. So those small little parts there are actually are actually little diagonal or part of an 8-petaled flower and diamond design motif. The kandit or the waistcloth, also of the Tausug. Okay, and we go to Abra. So Abra is a landlocked province on the western side of the massive Cordillera region in northern Luzon. Its deep valleys and sloping hills are enclosed by rugged mountains, except in the western portion where the Abra River flows towards the coastal plains of Ilocos Sur. Abra's neighbors are Ilocos Norte and Apayao in the north, Mountain Province in the south, Ilocos Sur on the southwest, and Kalinga on the east. Abra's inhabitants are mostly descendants of Ilocano settlers and members of the Tingian tribe or the Itnegs. So based on the 2000 census data, Ilocanos comprise 71.9% of the total population, of provincial population, while the Tingians or the Itnegs came in second at 18.7%. While the other ethnic groups in the province are the Ibanags, and the Tagalogs. The predominant language are Ilocanos and Itnegs. So Tayum and Nabarabar are two of the 27 municipalities of Abra that I shall be referring to today. So Tayum. So Tayum got its name from the indigo plant, which was commonly known to the Ilocanos as Tayum Tayum. Indigo, derived from fermenting the leaves, once flourished in Tayum, and it was a source of wealth for the Ilocanos. It was one of the, as we said earlier, in fact, the Philippines' first major export products, carried on galleons for sale with Europeans. On the seal, we also see an indigo dye vat. This big vat, the pagtambugan, was used in decaying the plant in a blue black dye called nila. See the similarity to the word nila. Nila, so it should be in about a half kilometer away from the town proper, in Barangay Deet. Cotton yarns were dyed using the nila. However, at the end of the century, a powder dye from the Anilino factory of Germany became popular among Ilocano weavers, effectively killing the indigo industry in Tayum. Peña Rubia. is a sixth-class municipality in the province of Abra province. According to the 2020 census, it has a population of 6,951 people. Today, it is composed of 9 barangays. I have it here. There, 9 barangays. The last town in the list is Namarabar, and is at the center and is at present the center of indigo planting and use in the province. The local plant or the local name for the indigo plant among the Ifnegs of Namarabar is Malatayum. The plant can produce various shades of color blue, including purple, and used to dye threads of weaving fabrics, not only in the Philippines, but also the rest of the world, like Cambodia, Thailand, India, even Europe and South America. Unfortunately, the emergence of cheaper and more readily available synthetic dyes has killed the indigo trade in the Philippines, with a tradition kept alive mainly in indigenous communities such as this one that continues to use the natural dye for weaves. The indigo trade, however, is showing signs of new life, thanks to the effort of the Non-Timber Forest Products Exchange Program Philippines, which started working on the indigo project as part of the efforts to promote the use of non-timber forest products such as indigo to give alternative livelihood to forest dwellers, such as the indigenous peoples, while protecting the little that remains of the country's forests, like the Itmegs, or the Tingians in Namarabar. So the Indigo Project works with indigenous populations in upland and rural communities in the Philippines and Indonesia, including members of the Mangyan Alangan, the Mangyan Hanuno, and the Mangyan Iraya of Mindoro, the Higaonon of Bukidnon, Palawanon, and Tagbanwa of Palawan, the Tiboli of South Cotabato, and the Maguindanao rivers and those of Negros. So the Namarabar Indigo Natural Dye Producer Cooperative in Abra, headed by Luis Agay Jr., is now producing natural dye out of barks and leaves of Indigofera Corrie plant, which they call, as I said earlier, Malatayum, and also sapan wood, the sapan, and these are being used for painting and coloring the cooperative's yarn and fabric products with Itmeg and Tingian design patterns. So a revival of what his father had been keeping as a family traditions, with the 7 hectares of the indigo plantation that their community now still maintains. So the various shades, so depending on the mix, you can have various shades of purple as well. Conclusion. So indigo continues to figure prominently, though up to this day, among Southeast Asian textiles, appearing in printed, woven, or dye-dyed textiles. So the nila, or the indigo plant, is an indicative of earlier folk expressions that recognizes its presence and value in the environment. Its widespread cultivation in Southeast Asia is indicative of its varying, though related nomenclature, pointing at the propagation and use of the nila in the said Southeast Asian communities. It also bears the name of historical nomenclature, such as Maynila, that has been maintained despite centuries of colonial rule, affirming the importance of the city, which has been declared by a Spanish royal decree as a most royal city. And it's the continuous relevance up to this day, as it has retained its prominence as the country's capital. So besides historical and linguistic basis of the relevance of the nila, ethnographic relevance of the plant is also being presented, as indigo continues to be used as weaving centers in Southeast Asia up to this day. So despite changes in the biocultural landscape, like in the case of Manila, some of these place names retain unaltered, and in fact serve as biohistorical and geohistorical markers. The name Manila has also remained, despite 3 centuries of Spanish rule, unaltered due to its established name in the trade network. The presence of the plant nila in the area is indicative of its being part of the network of exchange, a source of pride for any polity. In fact, indigo was one of the country's major, as we said earlier, export product. So the choice of Manila as the colonial administrative center is a confirmation of the importance of that policy, the quality that was previously established. So to end my presentation today is an attempt to present the indigo plant, Nila, as a possible company for Manila, one that may have less potential in environmental campaign of the city of Manila, but has a historicity that goes back previous to the advent of the European in the region and has potential in serving as platform for unity and integration in the Southeast Asian region. So this paper is part of a longer work that I'm preparing for the second volume of this book, Plant Diversity in Biocultural Landscapes, authored by Dr. Buot et al. Which incidentally will be open for, will be on sale starting May 19th, so this month. So we all look forward to this book, which highlights a comprehensive study on plant diversity, ecosystem processes, and the best conservation practices from the interdisciplinary perspective. And these what made me what opened the book to conservation practitioners such as some of us in this group in today's conference. So yes, and I'll be writing chapter 28. Yeah, okay. So once again, thank you for being around. Thank you for joining us, particularly in the opening program and the first plenary conference of our festival. Thank you once again. So good day, magandang umaga po sa lahat. I'll stop sharing.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Levy. What an informative and inspiring talk on our native Nalad and its connection to the name of Manila, and about the local indigo plants and its elaborate history and practices in the greater Southeast Asia. I always hear Dr. Levy share about the Nalad and indigo plant, and I think we now all know why. So again, thank you very much. But once again, let me call Dr. Levy to introduce our other speakers for this morning. Dr. Levy?
Okay, hold on. All right, so good morning again, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce to everyone Dr. Pastor L. Malabrigo Jr. He is a professor of the Department of Forest Biological Sciences in the College of Forestry and Natural Resources in the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. And I am with much pride, I quote Dr. June Buot, one of our lead experts, in the field of biocultural heritage, and as I said earlier, is the editor of the book that I shared with you earlier. And he has, I quote him, saying that Dr. Pastor Malabrigo would be the expert on the subject of the topic which he will be presenting today, Southeast Asian floral icons. So without further ado, let me present to you Professor Pastor L. Malabrigo Jr.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Levy, and good morning, everyone. May I allow to share my screen?
Yes.
Pa-change po sa multiple.
Just for a moment po.
It's okay na po.
Okay.
Loading. Okay, I hope you can see now my screen. Can you see now my screen?
Yes, it's clear.
Okay, thanks po. Again, good morning, everyone. Allow me to thank first the organizers for this of this prestigious conference, the Fauna Project, and of course the UP Manila, especially to Dr. Labor for inviting me to be one of the panel speakers. So in the interest of time, as I am only allowed to have 20 minutes presentation, I'll go straight to my discussion. By the way, I co-authored here my advisee, Forester Adrian Tobias, who's doing a lot of conservation works also in Philippine plants. Okay, so Southeast Asia is undoubtedly one of the most biodiverse regions in the planet. The more than 50,000 species of flowering plants in the region represents around 20% of the total flora of the world. So this shows exceptionally high species diversity, considering that the land area of Southeast Asia is only 3% of the Earth's total. And of the 17 megadiverse countries, recognized megadiverse countries in the world, 3 are in Southeast Asia: Malaysia, Indonesia, and of course, the Philippines. So given this diversity, I was really given a very tough job of selecting iconic flowers, because for me, every native flora is iconic. So before I prepared for my presentation, I actually did informal surveys among my botanist friends. And here are some of the plant groups that get the top votes from us. First on our list are the magnolias. Magnolia is an ancient genus believed to evolve earlier than the monocots around 95 million years ago. The genus is known for large, colorful, fragrant flowers, which are often stellate or star-shaped. The natural range of magnolia species is a disjunct distribution, but the main center is Southeast Asia, and a secondary center in North America and Central America, as well as West Indies. For your appreciation, here are some of the species of magnolia in Southeast Asia. The 3 species on top are native to the Philippines. The perianth, or the sepals and petals, are undifferentiated. So collectively, we call them tepals. And the tepals are arranged in wall of trees. Next on our list are the orchids. Orchids is the biggest plant group in Southeast Asia and second worldwide, next to Asteraceae. It is comprised of more than 28,000 species and 763 genera. And in the Philippines, 1 every 7 species of flowering plant is an orchid. Many people often mistook these plants as orchids, but they are not. These 3 are iris, while this one is a lily. Orchids can be easily distinguished from other plant groups because of its trimerous flowers, 3 sepals and 3 petals. But one of the petals is modified or developed into lip or labellum. And here are some of the numerous genera of orchids. You might be surprised to learn that the vanilla used for flavoring, it comes from the seeds of an orchid, and the genus name is vanilla. Though much of the vanilla being used today is produced synthetically. And here are some of the beautiful orchids we documented in Mount Mantalingahan, Palawan, during our biodiversity exploration in 2017 and 2018. Paphiopedilum faulae and Spathoglotis palawanensis are Palawan endemic. Another floral icon of Southeast Asia is the Nepenthes, or the pitcher plants. I intentionally use floral icons instead of iconic flowers because some of the plants are iconic not because of the flowers, but of other parts. A good example is this group, Nepenthes, or the pitcher plants or monkey caps. Pitcher plants are considered carnivorous plants because of their spatial ability to capture insects and other prey by means of the modified pitcher-shaped leaves that functions as passive pitfall traps. The name monkey caps refers to the fact that monkeys were once thought to drink rainwater from the pitchers. And the genus includes about 170 species, 59 of which are native to the Philippines. And the Philippines is home to the smallest and largest pitcher plants of the world. The smallest being Nepenthes argentii and the largest Nepenthes attenboroughi. Here is a very interesting pitcher plant, Nepenthes hemsleyana, endemic to Borneo. It has modified pitcher shape and fluid level to facilitate bat roosting, and an elongated inner pitcher wall to reflect the ultrasound pulse of bats, enabling them to locate and identify plants in dense vegetation. And here is a collage of the numerous Philippine pitcher plants. Next in our list is Medinilla, composed of more than 400 species of flowering plants, characterized by large panicle flowers and colorful bracts. The most gorgeous among the plant group is endemic to the Philippines, the Medinilla magnifica or kapa-kapa, as shown in the photo. And here are some of the Medinillas that we documented in the UP land grant, the southern part of Sierra Madre mountain range. We actually have 12 species of Medinilla in UP land grant. And speaking of iconic, this plant group will always be on top of the list. Amorphopalus is the genus of plant with the largest unbranched inflorescence, the Amorphopalus titanium, which is endemic to the forest of Indonesia. The name of the genus came from the Greek words amorphos, meaning without form, and phallos, meaning penis, referring to the shape of the prominent spadix. It is a large genus with more than 200 species, and 20 are native to the Philippines. Amorphopalus is known as corpse flower because of its pungent odor. When we had our visit to Sumatra in November of last year, we were able to encounter these flower buds of Amorphopalus titanium in a park intended for the propagation and growing of Amorphopalus. Please note that these are just buds or unopened flowers. And here are 12 of the 20 native Amorphopalus species in the Philippines. We don't have that large as huge as the Titan arum. Okay, when we talk about iconic flowers, most of the species that come to mind are either shrub, vine, or herbaceous. Trees, especially those known for wood, are often ignored for their ornamental value. But many of our native trees have iconic flowers as well. Here are some examples. These are flowers of mangkono or ironwood, Xanthostemon species. The Philippines have 5 species of ironwood, and all are endemic. The most gorgeous among the ironwood is the bagoadlaw, Xanthostemon philippinensis. The stamens resemble early morning sun rays, hence the name bagoadlaw or new day. And here are other premium trees with their lovely flowers: tindalo, ipil, dilenias, or katmon. This one is banaba, Lagerstemia speciosa. And this one is bita, a large tree with very attractive flowers. I know Dr. Jasper Obico will have his talk on dita later this day. And this one is amugis. The fruits are edible, similar in taste with siniguelas. This one is dao, also with edible fruits. And here's our only native bauhinia, the alibangbang or Bauhinia malabarica, now Piliostigma malabarica. The leaves of alibangbang is edible, used in making sour soup. Our national tree, Nara, is highly sought for wood, but it's also a very attractive ornamental tree. Mulave, another premium hardwood, has also flamboyant flowers. And this is aunasin, just a small tree, good for hedges. And shar, with bright yellow flowers and capiripads. And this was taken from a subdivision in Cavite. They use shar as road trees. Beautiful, isn't it? And this is the iconic kamagong. Fruits are attractive and delicious, but it has very minute flowers. And this one is betis, Madhuca betis, with an amazing ground, especially during fruiting. And this one should be grown and adopted by UP. The leaves are UP colors, green and on the surface and maroon on underneath. The flowers look like fireworks. In fact, the local name, the common name is fireworks, which signifies celebration such as graduation. This one is very much comparable to Sakura of Korea and Japan, Balay Lamok or Salimbobo, Carteba religiosa. And also this plant, the Elaiocarpus. We have a couple of Elaiocarpus species in the Philippines. And one of the members of the Philippine Native Tree Enthusiasts, or PNTE, Mr. O'Neill Santos, generously made several posters to show the innumerable native trees with high ornamental value. His aim is to encourage people, especially the landscapers, to mainstream native trees in urban planting. And he grouped it according to flower colors. These are trees with orange and pink flowers, trees with violet and red flowers, and take note that this includes the critically endangered Philippine teak, trees with white and yellow flowers. And our iconic flowers were also featured in our coins. Mangkono is in 1 centavo coin, kapal-kapal or Hoya pubicalix in 5 centavo coin, Katmon in 25 centavo coin, Waling-waling in 1 peso coin, Tayabak or jade vine in 5 peso coin, Kapa-kapa in 10 peso coin, and Nilad, the one discussed by Doc Levy, is in 20 peso coin. It's the plant where our capital city is named after. My Nilad denotes abundance of the plant in the area before. So, okay, it's time to reveal the most iconic flower of Southeast Asia. Of course, there's a lot more. I learned that Nanding Hauriga is here. Of course, Hoya are also very iconic, the Druseras, and a lot more. But I need to pick just few. So, yeah, we agree that this is the most iconic flowers of Southeast Asia. There's no question on this. The Rafflesia, it has the largest solitary flower in the whole plant kingdom, despite being endoparasitic, whose life entirely depends on its host vine, Tetrastigma. Rafflesia species are considered the most enigmatic plants in the planet. No roots, no leaves, no stem, only the magnificent flowers with very unpleasant odor, hence the name corpse flower. The 42 known species of Rafflesia only occur in the forests of Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, and Brunei. And the Philippines is considered the center of diversity with 15 species so far described, while Indonesia has the largest among the Rafflesias. One of the Rafflesia arnoldi spans over 1 meter in diameter. And during our expedition in Sumatra in November, we were so fortunate to witness the blooming of these giant flowers. And here's for you to estimate the size. Rafflesia bengaluensis, Rafflesia camumo, and Rafflesia arnoldi, the largest among the Rafflesia. And here are our Philippine Rafflesia. We have the smallest one, Rafflesia consueloi, and the largest in the Philippines is Rafflesia sandbergiana, around 80 centimeters in diameter. Our 15 Rafflesia species is distributed in 4 major islands: Luzon, Panay, Negros, and Mindanao. There were reports on the presence of Rafflesia in the islands of Mindoro, Bohol, and Hulo, but yet to be confirmed. The diversity of Rafflesia in Luzon Island is exceptional. It has 8 species so far described. Same number of species with Borneo, which is 8 times larger than Luzon. And there will be an additional species soon, as we are describing a new species from Central Cordillera. Very unique diaphragm and the perigon lobes. Then all Rafflesia species in the Philippines are rare. With the speciosa, which occurs in Negros and Panay, all species are island endemics. In the red list assessment that we recently conducted, 10 species are critically endangered, 4 are endangered, and 1 vulnerable. Rafflesia leonardi, for instance, is critically endangered, primarily because most likely it has less than 250 individuals, and the area of occupancy is less than 10 square kilometers. Rafflesia panchuana is the least threatened with vulnerable category, because this is the most common and most abundant, and majority of the subpopulations are within protected areas. And deforestation is the single greatest cause of species extinction, not only in the Philippines, but all over the world. And Rafflesia is not spared. Many of the species occur in severely degraded forests. For instance, this Rafflesia balete, a species previously recorded in 3 locations in Mount Isarog National Park, is now known only from a small patch of secondary forest between abaca plantations, less than 500 square meters. In Barangay Bolos Point, in the Cagayan province of Luzon Island, Rafflesia leonardi is passively extinct since its type locality was devastated by a strong typhoon in 2018. The situation is the same in other countries. The population of Rafflesia bengaluensis that we visited in Bengkulu is very much adjacent to a kaingin area, and therefore high risk of extinction. But what is noticeably different in other countries is their level of awareness and conservation efforts for their Rafflesia. In Sumatra, there is a very organized Rafflesia conservation network. They're doing a lot of social media publication to promote Rafflesia. In fact, Rafflesia Encounter is the #1 ecotourism attraction in Sumatra, and the local people are earning a lot from it. Families, including kids, value and appreciate the species so much. The people and the government are taking too much pride on their Rafflesia, and they are very good in promoting it. In Bengkulu, you can see Rafflesia everywhere, in schools, government buildings, and even in private houses. The Rafflesia Textile Company is also very much patronized by the people. Look at this shirt. He's a faculty member in Bengkulu University. And it's the close-up of the design with the Rafflesia bordered on it. And this is a very nice school uniform. Actually, we observed a lot of schools with Rafflesia batik as their school uniforms. And then he is the associate dean of Bengkulu University. Most of their batiks were bordered with Rafflesia as well. And this is what we would like to emulate here in the Philippines, because many Filipinos are not even aware that we have Rafflesia in the country, where in fact we are its center of diversity. We have a collaboration project with Dr. Chris Torgood of Oxford University on Rafflesia conservation. We are already mainstreaming Rafflesia on social media with the aim of increasing awareness. Chris is doing a lot of botanical illustrations as laymanized promotion materials. Many of his works were already displayed in local conservation hubs, and we feel that the people included in his illustrations, together with Rafflesia, are being more attached, more passionate, more deeply engaged with Rafflesia. It is a sad reality that plants do not get much attention like that of animals. Animal conservation is often more sympathetic and engaging. So the strategy in other countries is to compare the plants with endangered animals or threatened animals to arouse conservation interests. Here, the redwood is likened to blue whale, the cypress to an elephant, and the chichibu birds to black rhino. This is what we intend to popularize in areas where Rafflesias are naturally occurring. The Bukidnon local government could have this, comparing the threatened status of Rafflesia scadenbergiana to our Philippine eagle. We also initiated the Rafflesia blooming alert to encourage people to visit the areas where the Rafflesia is blooming. And now we maintain a good collaboration with social media reporters and writers, as we believe they can help a lot in prioritizing our works or popularizing our works. While my conservation discussion is focused on Rafflesia, I believe this can be applied to other plant groups as well. The problems are the same, and therefore the solution could also be generic. The first and most important step to conservation is to make people aware. Like the old conservation saying goes, we cannot conserve what we don't know exists. We are very much behind compared with our neighboring Southeast Asian countries when it comes to conservation efforts. But I'm very much positive that because of the unprecedented increase in the appreciation of our native plants, especially with conference like this, our forest land have a better future. Thank you for listening.
Okay, can we flash the page or the image of our next speaker, please? Okay, thank you, Dr. Malabrigo, for your wonderful sharing. Our next speaker, please, the image. All right. So Professor Kuo-Fang Chung obtained his PhD from Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri, USA. Our next speaker specialization includes plant taxonomy, phylogenetics, biogeography, conservation, and ethnobotany. A prolific researcher, having produced to date 102 publications. No? So currently Associate Research Fellow and Professor and Acting Director of the Research Museum Biodiversity Research Center, Academia Sinica in Taipei, Taiwan. So without further ado, we will be playing the video which was sent to us by Professor Kuo-Fang Chung with his work entitled Searching for the Tallest Tree of Taiwan, Ernest Wilson's Pearl of the Orient. So a perfect follow from Dr. Malabrigo's paper earlier. Okay. So let me just share screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, po.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Ay, ano bang ito? Wait, just double check if it's the right one. Share screen. Oh my God, sorry. Wait. It's not the right one, sorry. Why is this appearing? There you go.
Good morning, everyone. It's a great honor to be invited to Flores de Mayo event. A few months ago, my very dear friend, Professor Rosario from UP Manila, asked me if I can present something in this very meaningful event, talking about the heritage tree or nature of Taiwan. But I thought about this project, this idea to show you some of the current ongoing scientific endeavor in Taiwan. And the title of my talk is Searching for the Tall Tree of Taiwan, Ernest Wilson's Pearl of the Orient. First, I'd like to introduce Ernest Wilson. He was a gardener, a botanist, and a plant hunter. Wilson was known as Chinese Wilson because he had conducted extensive fieldwork in China in early 20th centuries. Trained as a horticulturalist, he was sent to China in 1899 and then conduct field trip for 3 years in China. And the first trip to China, the purpose is to collect this very beautiful tree called dove tree. This tree was considered the giant panda of the plant kingdom. And Wilson successfully introduced this tree to the Western world and become a very, very popular ornament in North America. And Wilson conducted a second trip in 1903 to 05, again to China. And for that tree, the purpose is to collect this very beautiful herbaceous plant called yellow Chinese poppy. Wilson went to China for the third time in 1907 to 1909. And in that tree, he collected more than 4,000 species. And in that tree, he took a camera with him and he took a lot of photos. Became one of the very valuable image of the early image of the China at the time. In 1910 to 11, he visited China for the first time, and unfortunately, he was hit by a rock, and he was forced to people carry him out and to try to save his leg. But even that, he was managed to take a lot of plant and photos. Wilson, these are the photos still preserved in Harvard University. Wilson visited Asia again in 1914 to 1915 to Japan. And the purpose of that tree was to collect rhododendron and the prunus or the cherry tree. And if nowadays, if you look at the garden around the world, most of the rhododendron and the cherry tree are actually introduced by Wilson during the trip. In 1917 to 1919, Wilson visited Asia for the sixth time and last time. First went to Japan, Korea, then eventually came to Taiwan. And during that trip to Taiwan, Wilson was helped by the government of Taiwan. At that time, Taiwan was governed by Japan. And at that time, China, the forests of Taiwan or the mountainous area of Taiwan are still it's actually very difficult to access because there still are a lot of very fierce indigenous population of Taiwan occupying various areas of Taiwan's mountain. And because of that, you also need a lot of company to go and collect the plant. And this indigenous population are what we call Austronesian speaking people. Some of you might not know that the indigenous population in Taiwan speak a very similar kind of language to the indigenous language of the Philippines. So Philippine people and the indigenous people in Taiwan are all part of the Austronesian speaking people. And with the help of this indigenous population and also the local the Japanese government and the botanists at that time, Wilson was able to collect many seeds and was able to conduct very, very successful field trip in Taiwan. He was able to collect a numerous seed plant and also was successfully introduced this very beautiful conifer tree back to the United States and later around the world. And these are some of the very magnificent, actually one of the earliest images of Taiwan in the forest. And in 1922, after Wilson returned to the United States, he published an article in the Journal of the Honor Operator, where he served as a director then. And Wilson, in an article titled "A Phytogeographic Sketch of the Lignous Flora of Formosa," he says that Formosa, which is the old name of Taiwan, is indeed the pearl of the Orient, and her crowning glory are the magnificent forests of evergreen Lauraceae and Fagaceae, the gigantic Chemaecyparis and the lofty Taiwanias, which cause steep and rugged mountains. And he said that preserved from the utilitarian Chinese by headhunting custom of the Aboriginal population, it is sincerely to be hoped that this forest may not be destroyed by the progressive Japanese. So this figure shows that the geographic position of Taiwan and the vegetation around the world. As you can see from this graph, that Taiwan is actually one of the very few big continental islands across the Tropic of Cancer. And this unique geographic position is actually a very important factor that has contributed to a very high biodiversity of Taiwan. If we take a close look of Taiwan, Taiwan is actually a very, very mountainous continental island with a lot of tall mountains, very steep slopes, narrow land, thin soil, and the water are basically very rapid and shallow. And we, like Philippines, are frequently hit by typhoon. And all these geographical, geological, and climatic factors have made Taiwan an extremely unstable habitat. And these habitats are very diverse, so that it's really foster a very, very rich biodiversity in this small island. If we look at the vegetation across Taiwan, if you have the chance to visit Taiwan, you will be amazed that we really had a lot of different kind of forests, from coastal forest to a very, very high mountain. It's all basically still covered by nice forests, a lot of area. And these forests are actually very diverse. And we also have a very, very different coastal area, from the Algal Reef in northwest Taiwan. We have a beautiful sand and sand rock coastal regions, very beautiful sandy beaches, and also a very, very nice coral reef beach, and also some volcanic island on the east. And for the past a few decades, the scientists of Taiwan have worked very hard trying to catalog all the biological species of Taiwan. And currently in the national database, what we call TAICO, which is the short, it was an acronym for Catalog of Life in Taiwan. The database today have recorded 63,568 species. And this is a database being updated daily. And this is actually one of the very rare databases in the world that can precisely and clearly tell people how many species you can find in a given country. And this rich information have also been included in the Global Biodiversity Information Facility, and along with a lot of the other survey data, occurrence data collected by scientists and also by the citizen scientists. And as you can see from this map of GBIF, Taiwan is a very, very is a red star, meaning we have a very, very high occurrence point in this tiny island. And currently there are more than 6 million occurrence records from Taiwan, making Taiwan the country with the highest occurrence record in GBIF of Asia country. And with this kind of information, really enable us to get a very good idea about where we head for our biodiversity. And this is also very important for the conservation and management. And also based on this rich data collected during the past few decades, the scientists were able to conduct extensive analysis to understand what we have in our island, and also were able to produce a very precise vegetation map. And this vegetation map provide a very important baseline data for the conservation of the management and the management of our natural resources. And so based on this information, we have scientifically demonstrate and also to show the vegetation, what the vegetation type we have. So basically, if we walk from lowland to highland of Taiwan, you will encounter the vegetation like a lowland tropical forest. Mid elevation is similar to like a subtropical forest. Then you can have like a temperate forest in the mid and high elevation. And by elevation about 3,000 meters, we will enter an area with basically like a boreal forest of very high latitude. So basically the vegetation in Taiwan is really, you can see that Taiwan have all the vegetation type of Taiwan, all the vegetation type of Asia. So this very small island really have a rich diversity. Okay, Among these this vegetation, one of the most remarkable vegetation type is the cloud forest in mean elevation from 1,500 to up to 2,800 meters. And this forest is actually an area where you can find a lot of magnificent and a relic giant conifer tree. And this is area that interested Wilson the most in early 19th centuries. And this another example, this is the Cornihemia cornicia, which is considered endemic variety of Taiwan, producing a very, very good wood and giant tree in the giant tree. Okay, and these giant trees were actually very important for early forestry of Taiwan. And this, so actually after Japanese, during Japanese occupation period, the lodging and exporting of the wood is extremely important for the national economy. And one of the best places to see this giant tree is in Japan. This is in Minji-juku, which is an imperial house of Japan. If you go to this area, you can see this very gigantic wood structure, which is actually composed of three big trees from actually exported from Taiwan. Having said that, by 1980s, the government of Taiwan actually outlawed the lodging of the natural vegetation. So forests have been preserved since then. And so we were actually quite fortunate that we still, the island still had preserved a lot of very beautiful and pristine forest. And recently, there's a lot of interest in this area. And one of the things they do is they use a new technology to call a LiDAR. And based on this LiDAR information, we can have a better understanding of our natural vegetation. And so based on a recent survey of the forest, there's about 2.1 million hectares of forest in Taiwan. And this forest cover about 60% of the area of Taiwan. And based on the survey, we estimate there are 950 million trees in Taiwan. And based on 5,000 LiDAR images, there's a group of volunteers. They identify more than 941 trees that taller than 65 meters. And there are 200 trees taller than 70 meters, and there are 27 trees taller than 75 meters. And these are really, really big trees that really interest us. Okay, I'm going to show you one of the video to highlight the discovery of this tree.
The thing that I loved about Taiwan the most was just how beautiful the forests were. The forests that we were working in were these magical cloud forests with huge conifer trees.
We were actually out there for 17 days photographing this one single tree.
The tree image that we created was a composite of 40 photographs. And these photos were taken from an aerial rigging system that we had suspended between two adjacent trees.
This is easily our best project yet. We had the best people, we had the best equipment, we had the best climbers, we had the best scientists, and we had, I have to say, the best tree. The thing that I'll remember most from this project is the people. The people were just fantastic, so hospitable, so friendly, so enthusiastic about achieving a really great result. We both really hope that the people of Taiwan can be proud of their forests in a whole new way and can find a new level of appreciation for their forest through this photo.
We had so much fun creating this project, and this image is really quite special to us. We're really looking forward to sharing it with you and the rest of the world.
This is our best work yet, and it really shows.
Daanxi 以前卷 number 55214 was identified as a potential big tree, and there's a team went to the forest and they measured the tree. The tree is 84.1 meter tall, which is currently the tallest tree in East Asia. And so I think it's really magnificent. It's really remarkable that the island of Taiwan still have this tallest tree. And I think it's really highlight the importance of the protection of the forest. And I am hoping this tree can be there forever. This will be important for our conservation and also for the sustainability of the island and around the world. And thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ku Fangchung, for the wonderful talk about the tallest tree of Taiwan, the Ernest Wilson Squirrel of the Orient. I hope I get to personally see the tallest tree in East Asia at least once in my lifetime. Actually, Dr. Ku Fangchung is actually here with us in the Zoom right now. So to our guests, if you have any questions for him, you may ask them later during our Q&A portion. But before we proceed with our next speakers, I would like to call Professor Alice Adava back to the virtual podium to introduce one of our esteemed guests this morning. Okay, I think it seems that Professor Alice Adava has been disconnected due to internet connection problems. So I'll do the introducing. All right, so it always gives me great pleasure to introduce our UP Manila Chancellor. So I consider it an opportunity to inform everyone how supportive she has been in all activities, not just those of the activities of the College of the Arts and Sciences, but also those of the Department of the Arts and on communication. So despite her hectic schedule, she has never turned down an invitation to give an inspirational message to set the tone of our activities. So with this year's Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference, she has once again graced us with her presence through recorded video. So those who are here today but who aren't in UP in 2015 may not be aware that in June 15 of that year, UPLB named a hybrid of gumamela after our dear Chancellor. So this breed of gumamela is officially named Hibiscus rosa sinensis Carmencita David Padilla. The UPLB Crop Science Cluster Institute of Plant Breeding recognizes outstanding women academicians and scientists elected to the National Academy of Science and Technology. Her sterling career as an academician, scientist, and administrator truly makes UP Manila fortunate to have a chancellor like her. So esteemed guests, faculty, and students, to give her inspirational message, I present Chancellor Carmencita David Padilla.
Miss Carlota Contreras-Koterbay. Dr. Maria Constancia Carrillo, Dean of the College of Arts and Sciences, Dr. Honey Libertine Achanzar-Labor, UP Manila Professor of Cultural Heritage and Arts Management for the BA Philippines Arts Program and Executive Director of the Faura Project. Dr. Kua Fang Chung, Professor and Acting Director of the Research Museum, Biodiversity Research Center, Academia Sinica, Taipei, Taiwan. Dr. Matthew Santamaria, Assistant Dean for Cultural Affairs, Asian Center, UP Diliman. Ms. Carlota Contreras-Koterbay, Director of ETSU Silicon Galleries in Johnson City, Tennessee, USA. Professor Pastor Malabrigo, Department of Forest Biological Sciences, Department of Forestry and Natural Resources, UP Los Baños. Our UP Manila professors and faculty, guests, and to all in attendance, a pleasant morning to you all. I would like to extend my warmest felicitations as we celebrate the 2023 International Flores de Mayo Festival, themed Heritage Matters. As with last year's festival, I applaud the efforts of Project Faura in cultivating the historical significance of Ermita and the relevance of UP Manila as the birthplace of the country's paramount state university. I commend your efforts. They are of great benefit in continuously nurturing in the people's minds the heritage that is Ermita, the heritage that is UP Manila. Flowers have many functions, whether medical, a form of medicine, or a sign of love. But I want to bring you back to recent Philippine history in 1986. In 1986, a people awakened from the slumber and nightmare imposed by the dictatorship took to the streets to meet the soldiers who were poised to attack Camps Crame and Aguinaldo in order to stifle the people power revolution in its early stages. And for those of you who remember, the people gifted the soldiers food, groceries, and flowers. The most potent resurrection of one of our greatest heritages, democracy, was brought about by, among many things, flowers. In democracy's most pronounced event, flowers were present. Democracy, one of the greatest inheritances given to us by Rizal, by Bonifacio, by Bangkok, and countless heroes and heroines throughout history, was heralded by flowers. The tropical nature of our country is reason for the abundance of beautiful flowers. And discovery of new species must be an academic exercise for generations to appreciate. Now allow me to mention two passionate groups I have personally interacted in the past 3 years. As part of the 25th homecoming celebration of the UP College of Medicine, and that was in 2020, we were introduced to 2 species of Aerides found only in the Philippines. The Aerides turma, dedicated to the College of Medicine class 1995, and the Aerides turma anniversarius to commemorate their 25th anniversary. Turma is a Latin word for batch. Aerides turma was published in Orchidean Journal by Dr. De Leon, our retinal surgeon and member of the College of Medicine class of 1995, along with co-authors Martin Motis, June Kutz, and Derek Kabaktulan. There are more than 1,100 orchid species in the Philippines, and only 11 of these are the Aerides species, according to Kabaktulan. But Aerides UPCMA is the most surprising of all the Philippine Aerides. It belongs to a section that has not been found outside of its range in mainland Southeast Asia. What a way to immortalize the contributions of a group of doctors, a batch of doctors, by naming an organ in their memory, Aerides UPCMA. Allow me this time to recognize the team from UP Los Baños. I had the privilege of visiting the UP Sierra Madre Land branch last mid-February, and I was personally amazed and impressed to know that this property has at least 485 flower species to date, 162 of which are Philippine endemics, which accounts for 33% of the total floral inventory. One of your speakers, Professor Malabrigo, will probably share more about this. I want some of those flowers in the gardens of UP Manila. Indeed, there must be a conscious effort to discover, conserve, and share the beauty of these flowers. So during this entire festival, saturate your minds with the knowledge you will be learning about our Filipino and Asian heritage. Satisfy your hunger for historical facts about this area, Ermita, Faura, and the vicinities, and continue to cultivate your sense of democracy and truth during these times that our country is seemingly bereft both. And most of all, remember to stop and smell the flowers. Appreciate their beauty that only a God of goodness can create for us to feel His love. Maraming salamat at mabuhay kayong lahat.
Thank you so much to our Chancellor, Carmencita Padilla, for that wonderful talk. So we would like to take a moment to recognize her by presenting her with a certificate of appreciation. So we would like to present the certificate to Chancellor Carmencita Padilla for delivering the inspirational talk during the 2023 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference opening program. So given the second day of May 2023 during the 2023 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference. Thank you again to our Chancellor for gracing this conference with your presence. So now I would like to call back to the virtual podium Dr. Achanzar-Labor to introduce our next speakers.
All right. Good morning. Good morning again. Thank you, Madam Chancellor, for putting in context, no, the trust of the first plenary. No, it was a perfect segue for the last two papers which we are be having this morning. So the first two had to do with the more of the biocultural heritage, and the next two will definitely be on the cultural heritage that has to do with in the context of Southeast Asia. So without further ado, let me introduce to you our next speaker. So our next speaker is a professor of Asian and Philippine Studies at the Asian Center, University of the Philippines, Manila. He received his Doctor of Law in Political Science from the Kyoto University Graduate School of Law in 1999. And he holds the title of University of the Philippines Artist II, awarded in 2015 and 2020, and currently holds a UP Centennial Professorial Chair and a 1 UP Professorial Chair Award. He has published many book chapters, articles, and essays on the themes of ethnic conflict, Sama Bajau ethnography, ritual and performance, and dance studies. He continues his advocacy in helping sustain Sama Bajau traditional music and dance through the Bunga Arts Link, a performance group which he established in 2004. The BAL, through the Kulintangan Project, raises funds for the purpose of purchasing Kulintangan, or graduated Bost Gong, music and sound instruments for the Sama Bajau diaspora communities in Luzon and in the Visayas. He currently serves as Assistant Dean for Cultural Affairs at the Asian Center of the University of the Philippines, Diliman. So without further ado, let me introduce to you Dr. Matthew Santamaria. So this lecture will be on of celestial maidens and enchanted princesses. Jappy,
The
will you
Ibang Adarna, or the... Is it heard po ba?
is this Jappy?
The Adarna bird is a Philippine
Yes, we hear you. We
epic
hear.
in the form
Not,
the Ibang Adarna, or the Adarna bird, is a Philippine epic in the form of the corrido, or Tagalog metrical romance, along with a Florante at Laura, an epic in the form of the awit by Francisco Baltasar, and No Limit Tangere and El Filibusterismo, two novels by the Philippine national hero Jose Rizal. It forms part of the national literary canon taught in secondary schools. Ibang Adarna is often taught in the schools as an exposition of Philippine values, of, among others, kindness, loyalty, and courage. In this presentation, I argue that this classic piece of literature can be most useful in illustrating Philippine Southeast Asian cultural roots. One of the most intriguing artifacts in the Ayala Museum gold collection is a vessel in the shape of a bird woman. Found in a slightly mangled, twisted, and pounded condition, this precious gold figure appears to portray a process of metamorphosis. A woman turning into a bird, or a bird turning into a woman. The bird woman is a motif found in many folk tales or oral narratives of the indigenous peoples of the Philippines, as well as other parts of Southeast Asia. Scholars of folklore invariably call the bird woman motif by other labels, such as the swan maiden, the sky maiden, or the celestial maiden motif. Among the Manobo of Surigao del Sur and surrounding areas, several foundational ancestral myths feature the union of a male human ancestor and a heavenly being or a celestial maiden, called in living. As such, an older generation of Manobo believed that they traced their lineage to this union between the human and the divine. In the tale of the Ibang Adarna, the bird woman motif can be found in the second part of the Tagalog corrido. In the second part of the narrative, the protagonist, Don Juan, is betrayed by his two brothers who allowed the Adarna bird to escape. Don Juan is later on reunited with the magical Adarna bird, who advises him to pursue Doña Maria Blanca of the Kingdom of Crystals. Doña Maria Blanca is one of three enchanted princesses who descend to their baths, leaving their dove feather vestments on a pear tree. And let me read the translation. In a while, they took off their dove-feathered robes and dove into the waters of their bathing pools. Don Juan temporarily detains Doña Maria Blanca by stealing her feathered clothes. He later relents and apologizes. Doña Maria Blanca is enamored by his sincerity. She later helps Don Juan through her magic powers to accomplish 7 impossible tasks assigned by her father, King Salerno. After so many other challenges, Don Juan and Doña Maria Blanca eventually marry and reign over the Kingdom of Crystals upon the death of King Salerno. Another folktale is, or rather an account of the Ilianan Manobo, is the Guhud ini Atagte Nanguna ni Iteo. Among the Ilianan Manobo of central Mindanao, the Sky Maiden narrative is said to narrate and talk about the origins of the very first people. Balatime, the protagonist's name in this narrative, hunts for wild chickens near a forest pool. While setting his traps, he sees 7 maidens descending from the sky. He takes fancy of the youngest of the 7 and steals her pakpak nilimbum, or feather-winged dress. Bleteme takes the woman home and makes her his wife. Meanwhile, he hides the feather-winged dress inside a case and places it in the rafters of their home. After some time, the woman gives birth to a daughter. The celestial maiden eventually discovers where Bleteme hid her feathered winged dress, and she decides to divorce her husband. And after nursing her child for the last 3 times, she flies and returns to her home in the sky, never to be seen again. The narrative of this Ilianan Moba account ends as follows. Ara dataman kagugud ki Bleteme. This is the extent of the account of Bleteme. Guhud here refers to a historical account. As such, the story is seen by an older generation of Ilianan Manobo as a narration of the people's ancestral origin. The next tale is from the Keningau Murut of Sabah, Malaysia, and it is about Bayagong and the fairy cloak. While hunting near Liawan River, Bayagong sees 7 beautiful women bathing in a pool. He notices their clothes made of iridescent material hanging on some bushes nearby. To his surprise, the clothes had wings. The women happened to be fairy princesses from Kayangan, the sacred land of fairies or the enchanted ones. Out of curiosity, he takes the smallest of the clothes, which belongs to the youngest of the fairy princesses. As she could not return to Kayangan, Bayagong takes her home and makes her his wife. She eventually bears him a son. Like in the Manawa tale, the celestial maiden eventually discovers where her husband hid her magical clothes and decides to leave him. Bayagong is distressed by the news of his wife's departure. He immediately goes to a journey to Kayangan with his son to search for his wife. Bayagong successfully reaches Kayangan and lives there for some time with his wife and son. However, due to bullying by the heavenly residents, he eventually gets thrown back to earth. He finds himself lying on the ground with an axe and a drum, which came from their house in Kayangan, along with pink stalk coconuts that grew beside their house. The tale ends as follows. Bayagong died in an extreme old age. Nuts from his coconut palm were distributed all amongst the Murut as Yasaw Magarinding, though called by the Dusun as Pesaw Dayang. His drum and axe became precious pusaka or heirlooms, and the white of the old man was cut off. The white finger of the old man was cut off by his heirs before his body was buried and preserved as a visible memorial to be seen, it is said, even to this day, of a mighty hunter and famous warrior who once had won for himself a fairy princess as a wife and had seen with mortal eyes the magic realm of fairyland. The concluding part of this folktale implicitly attempts to explain some elements of present reality. The pink coconut as an agricultural cultivar brings much pride to the Murut and Dusun peoples of Sabah, Malaysia, while the mere mention of the word pusaka implies an actual link to the past via tangible and intangible cultural properties. The next story is that of Jakatarub and Nawang Wulan. This is a genealogical account from a central Javanese chronicle. The Babad Tanah Jawi, containing the genealogical chronicles of the central Javanese, includes the story of Jaka Tarub and 7 celestial maidens. While hunting for deer in Dadapan village, Jaka Tarub encounters 7 apsara or celestial maidens descending towards a pool to bathe. He steals the magical shawl of Nawang Wulan, the youngest among them. She eventually becomes his wife, who later bears him a daughter named Nawangsi. Like the other tales, Nawang Wulan eventually discovers her magical shawl and returns to her heavenly abode. It is said that Nawangsi, the daughter of Jakatarub and the celestial maiden Nawang Wulan, married Lembu Peteng, the son of Brawijaya, who was one of the kings of the Majapahit Empire. The union produced a son named Ki Gatas Pandava, who in turn had a son named Ki Ageng Sala. Panambahan Senapati, the founder of the Mataram kingdom that succeeded the Majapahit Empire, traces his lineage to Ki Ageng Sala. The kingdom of Mataram was eventually succeeded by the sultanates of Surakarta or Solo and Jogjakarta. The story of Jaka Tarub and Nawang Wulan, as recorded in the Babad Tanajawi, may therefore be understood as a genealogical account of nominally extant royal dynasties that combines itself with aspects of myth about the union of the human and the divine. The next story is that of Kambu and Mera, the founders of the Khmer nations. And this story can be read in the 10th century inscription on the stone doorway in the temple of Bakse Chamron in the area of Angkor Wat. The inscription reads, "Honor self-created Kambu, whose glory like a star rose at the horizon, and whose superior descendants, having obtained the conjunction of the solar and lunar races, disperses ignorance, and is perfectly complete, accomplished in all the arts. I implore Mera, the most glorious celestial maiden, whom Shiva, Guru of the 3 worlds, gave from on high as queen to this wise man." On one hand, it can be interpreted from the inscription that Kambu is a learned man who unites 2 dynastic lines of 2 races. Mera, on the other hand, is an apsara of a celestial maiden who is purportedly gifted by Shiva, the lord of the dance. The name Cambodia is derived from Kambuja, also pronounced as Kampuchea, which means born of Kambu. It is often explained that the combination of Kambu and Mera results in the autonym of the Khmer nation. Princess Norodom Bupadevi, daughter of King Norodom Sihanouk, premieres the most important lead role of Mera in the well-loved dance titled Apsara. Allow me now to go on a brief analysis of the different narratives. This article examines 5 bird maiden or celestial maiden stories from 4 countries in Southeast Asia. Although many more are not included in this sampling of stories, the overlaps or continuities among them in terms of settings, actions, and episodes are remarkable enough to think in terms of either common origins or cultural encounters among the communities where they are found in Southeast Asia. Table 1 summarizes the major continuities among these narratives, thus placing Ibong Adarna quite well embedded in the set of tales about celestial or bird maidens in Southeast Asia. All of the protagonists in the narratives in this study can be seen as men of prowess. That is, they are all believed to be endowed with innate spiritual property, but in greatly varying degrees, and personal achievement and leadership. Quote, unquote, from W. W. Walters. The narratives of the Ibong Adarna and that of Kambu and Mera see their main protagonists as noble princes. Don Juan, of the former, endowed with the qualities of kindness and courage, and Prince Kambu, widely recognized as a learned man. The rest of the narrative see the main protagonist as a highly skilled hunter, and hunting is a most appreciated skill in hunting-gathering societies that can spell the progress or doom of a family or kinship grouping. In all these narratives, marital union symbolizes the coming together of not just of man and woman, but also of the earthly and heavenly abodes. The man is a creature of prowess, while the woman is a creature of magic. Man is mundane, while woman is sacred. This complementarity appears to be a leitmotif in communal roles of the male datu in tandem with the female or even transgender Catalonan or Bailan, also known as Babaylan, found in maritime Southeast Asian communities. In all of the narratives, the meeting of earthly and heavenly beings results in marriage or union, except for the Ibong Adarna, which ends in matrimonial union. All the others result in progeny. The union of Bainagong and the celestial maiden produces a son. The Elian and Manobo tale explains the union as the origin of their people. So does the story of Kambu and Mera in the case of the Khmer people. The story of Jaka Tarub and Nawang Wulan produces Nawang Si, who according to the Babal Tanajawi, becomes one of the founding ancestors of the royal lineage of the Mataram kingdom. In this piece, I have re-examined the Tagalog corrido of the Ibong Adarna in the context of its links to other narratives found in Southeast Asia. Although set in a fictive medieval European kingdom called Berbania, the Ibong Adarna corrido contains in its second half the narrative of the bird maiden or the celestial maiden. It may be said that this narrative motif can stand on its own, apart from the first half of the corrido. Seen in this light, the Ibong Adarna can be seen as a conglomerate of 2 or even 3 narratives. And it may be surmised that what started out to be a simple narrative with a single plot through repeated performative reiterations after several generations acquired other plots via cultural appropriation of other standalone narratives. I would now like to conclude this piece with a return to the golden image found in Surigao, in the southern Philippines. Some experts refer to this image as a kinari, a term for a bird maiden in Thailand, Laos, and Cambodia, and some parts of the northern parts of the Malayan Peninsula. In my mind, the image could very well be the Ibong Adarna's Doña Maria in a magical state of transfiguration from a dove to a human form. But then again, this particular imagining is an imposition of my lowland Christian cultural mind on an artifact that surely must have been conceptualized by creative katutubo or native minds and crafted by likewise skillful katutubo hands. As the image is found in the overlapping domains of the Manobo and other katutubo, it should properly be referred to as an image of an in-living or a heavenly being, or arahad ng pakpak na lembong, a young maiden with feather-winged dress. This suggested act of relabeling hopefully reunites the tangible and the intangible in the context of the locale or the site of its discovery. Thank you very much. Maraming salamat po. Terima kasih banyak. Okun Cherang.
Thank you very much, Dr. Santa Maria, for the wonderful talk, for setting the pace of the cultural heritage segment, no, of our conference, that's early during their first plenary session. So, and then we now go to the last, not least, presentation for the first plenary. May I present to you Contreras-Koterbay, who received her BA in Anthropology and MA in Arts History from the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She was former board director of Arts Association of the Philippines, and for coach, she's a member of the International Council of Museums, the American Association of Museums, and board director of the Mid-South Sculpture Alliance. She's a recipient of awards from Paul Foundation, Tennessee Arts Commission, and East Tennessee Foundation. So with much pride, I share with you a friend. I introduced to you a friend who I knew way back since college days, and who was very active in the local scene in Manila while she was still here, and is giving us pride, no, while she is in Tennessee right now with her family. So without further ado, let me introduce to you again Ms. Carlota Contreras-Koterbay.
Thank you, Levy. Magandang umaga po sa lahat. I would like to thank the Faura project and Dr. Achanzar-Labor, Dr. Carrillo, Chancellor Padilla, Professor Adeva for organizing this wonderful event. And I'd like to greet my fellow speakers, Professor Chung, Dr. Marla Brito, and Dr. Santa Maria. I am very honored to be part of this plenary session. I would like to share my screen. So from the plants and the cultural icons and mythology, we now go to contemporary art of Southeast Asian artists in the US. So let me share my screen. Okay. So this talk that I'll be presenting is entitled Adapted Southeast Asian American Women Artists, Negotiating the Liminal, Displacement, and Hybrid Identities. So I am the current director for ETSU Slocum Galleries here in the Appalachian Highlands here in Tennessee. And one of our mission is to develop creative excellence, foster collaborations, promote cultural engagement, and encourage critical thinking by providing access to and serving as inclusive platforms for innovative ideas and diverse exhibitions. We have two galleries, the Slocum Galleries in campus, that we do more formal exhibitions. And then we have the Tipton Gallery, which is in downtown, where we do our diversity exhibition, a lot of culturally diverse exhibits from Native Americans, Black, Native American, Latin American, and Asian artists. So the Adapted Southeast Asian American Women Artists, Negotiating the Liminal, Displacement, and Hybrid Identity discusses select Southeast Asian women artists featured at the galleries through the years who address issues of migration, home, belonging, and resistance. The adaptive strategies they employ hinges on the beliefs that identities are constructed with art as a potent form of agency that can bridge inclusion, equality, visibility, express dissent, as well as empower marginalized communities. The artists that will be discussed in this exhibition all have Southeast Asian lineal heritage. Either they were born from those nations who have migrated, or they were born in the US from Southeast Asian parents. And they have all explored their multiracial experiences and familiar memories in navigating their identities that are defined as liminal, hyphenated, or hybrid. The complex forms are visualized narratives of trauma, displacement, redefinition of home, reinvestigation of history, and empowered self-representation to carve their evolving presence in the highly complex communities here in the US. Adaptation as a form of rewriting oneself narrative, a refitting of one's senses to the new environment and the redesign of the self to belong and engage to its new place is something that is common to migrant and Asian artists in the US. Place is vital in the construction of the self. But what happens when one is transplanted, migrated, or adopted to somewhere else? The break and the loss of one's place is always traumatic and disconcerting. Finding oneself in another place requires the process of reinvestigation and acceptance, both from oneself and the new community, as well as the one left behind. And it's not always an easy process. And these artists have employed their creative agency in forging their identities. Adaptation versus assimilation. Adaptation is an intended effort to retain some parts of the indigenous identity, evolve to new environment, as opposed to the homogenizing process of assimilation or complete erasure of one's identity. While assimilation is the colonizer's aim, adaptation is the colonized response, or the migrant's response. The anti-post-colonial strategies enable survival from the violence and the otherness, to adapt to the old with the new, employing language, memory, visual symbols, and cultural iconographies to amalgamate hybrid identities. So some of these images that you will see are screenshots of exhibition installation that these Asian exhibits that we have featured at the galleries. The first exhibit that I would like to discuss is The Rumors of Necessity. It was curated by Alejandro Acierto, a Filipino-Spanish curator based in Chicago. Rumors of Necessity is an exhibition that positions Asian American bodies in relation to conditions of surveillance, militarization, and exclusion in an era of ongoing wars along the US border and abroad. I wanted to start with this because of the current political turmoil in the US, especially after the past reign of number 45. So this show hinges on the notion of the rumor, where contemporary anxieties around difference have often been the result of misinformation. This exhibition draws on the contemporary Asian American artists in Tennessee and the region and the archive to articulate strategies of the state to enact corporeal control through militarization and exclusion, something that is not exclusive to the US, but it's also happening to various Asian and other countries internationally, all over the world. The work began to engage in increasingly significant dialogues as we grapple with contemporary concerns over borders, nationhood, and the rumors surrounding patriotism and allegiance. Foregrounding our contemporary moment where racial profiling of Muslim and Latinx communities emerges as an ongoing trope of 45's administration and is further propelled by broader social anxieties that have amplified white supremacist ideologies, this exhibition worked to present alternative forms of embodiment that speak back to the historical traumas of militarization and exclusion. Two female Southeast Asian artists were included in the show, and that is Sisavan Futabong and Hong An Chuong. Over 5,400 Lao refugees were settled in Kansas in the aftermath of the Laotian Civil War that ended in 1975. Sisavan's parents and family were part of those refugees. Through Sisavan's powerful acrylic work, she confronts the challenges of bicultural memory and documentation. Her work probes what is shared, what is felt, and what must remain deeply personal among the lessons passed on to the next generation as it heals and rebuilds. Sisavan considers notions of the abstract and the concrete for those who must remember both their inner and external histories in a diaspora framed by secrecy and loss. The next image is the installation that she had from that Rumors exhibition, comprised of 80 small-scale mixed media collage that was installed as an 8x10 wall piece, representing the 80 million cluster bombs that did not detonate after 270 million were dropped on Laos as part of the secret war on Laos. Sisevan says, as a refugee, the process of connecting and disconnecting with a place or community are abstracted ideas of migration as an immigrant. The collage and painting process is unpredictable and is an ongoing dialogue about assimilating and relocating into another culture and space. The work capture and embrace architecture and built environment in its state of flux. Reflecting on the impact of displacement as a result of war, Alejandro Acierto describes Sisevan's work and her paintings that confront legacies of trauma that offer the necessary space for healing and community. With these works, Rumors of Necessity closes the gaps of the unsaid to draw us closer to knowledge, to develop a language of sanctuary devoid of exclusion, and to reshape the trajectories of trust in an era of unease. The work on the left is an installation that Sisevan created by collecting images of refugees or fellow Lao refugees. And she, as a printmaker and a painter and graphic artist, she collected these photographs and made installation and printed them into this sheer fabric that is almost ghostly. And this is her effort to provide visibility to the lost communities and those who have migrated from Laos to the US. Now, transitioning to the other artist, Hong Ang Tron, again, Acierto described her work, wherein her carbon prints on mirror are images of protest, while her prints on paper are manifesto for self-determination by various minority groups in the US. Hong An Tron was born in the US to Vietnamese refugees, and her installation or series of work entitled We Are Beside Ourselves mourns nothing and gives up nothing. It is an attempt to respond to the current political crisis vis-a-vis the delirious promise and desire of radical politics. She describes her experience wherein she assumes the dispossession of our own histories, assuming the losses that define the textures of our positions. The discrete works in this show assert a space for desire and belonging in the face of a racist imaginary that relies on difference and subjection. The title takes its inspiration from queer literary theory, which conceptualizes as non-binaristic, non-dualistic spatialization, allowing for a non-linear logic that opens up possibilities to imagine identity as a multiplicity of desiring, identifying, representing, repelling, differentiating, and mimicking. The work We Are Beside Ourselves forges a material history for Asian American resistance, a history that frames the visualization of political identities in photographic terms of the legible. It asks, what is unseen? What has been refused to be acknowledged? Mining the archives of what seems to be the familiar history of the 1960s and 70s in the US radical liberation movements, these photo-based works, including carbon transfer photographs on mirror and lithographic prints, begin to make legible a political genealogy that draws out the intertwined and parallel relationships between the individual and the collective, the personal and the political, something that is very common to Southeast Asian migrants and artists, the relationship of the individual to the collective. Now, the next exhibition that I will discuss is entitled Kayumangi Post-Colonial Philippinics. There are 3 Southeast Asian artists in this group, mainly from the Philippines, whose parents migrated to the US. This exhibit focuses on the politics of skin color and the post-colonial investigation of the nuanced hybrid identity of Filipinx American. The artist's voice issues to address the discrepancy in the visibility of minority and Asian American communities in the mainstream art, media, and social consciousness in the US. The employment of the term Filipinx versus the tradition Filipino or Filipina was intentional to position the gender inclusive as the term of preference instead of the colonial imposed gender limiting terminologies. The first artist in the show that I would like to discuss is Leticia Bajuyo. Her interest in perception and cultural capital began with her autobiography, Growing Up as Multiracial, Filipino, Chinese, French, and Dutch, in a small town of Metropolis on the border of Illinois and Kentucky, fostered her a sense of partial displacement, which heightened her interest in perception and the arbitration of value. She utilizes recognizable and seemingly neutral commonplace objects that invite audiences to name, compare, and participate in theatrical re-arbitrations of value as critique of capitalism. She considers what is desired, manufactured, advertised, bought, and collected continually communicates social ideals, and what is or what is not kept, maintained, or selected communicates collective and individual views on growth, aging, race, and class. This work is her installation wherein she etches these soap with values and not just values, but sometimes even characteristics that are shameful. And the viewers are invited to participate and wash their hands with this soap as part of the ritual. Influenced by anthropology of art, philosophy of democracy, theology of environment, and the Irish immigrant experience, Letitia's foundational influence affected her conceptual development and have helped yield works made from stretched slinky toys, etched rose-scented soap, and bath drugs that are combined with poetry about relativity. Through her work, she creates moments of tension that make visible the thin lines of perception between desire and rejection. The dichotomy of time and space, of quiet landscape vis-a-vis the multinational dialogues inside Letitia's family home influenced the development of her critique of consumer capitalism, domestic desires, and internalized pressures of assimilation. Her parents were doctors, and she grew up as the only brown Filipino kid in this small town of Metropolis. Her research on cultural privilege and consumer pressure drive her to create and question a vision that is comfortable, contained, and controlled. Now, the next artist is Gina Osterlo, a photographer and film and performance artist whose work depicts mark making in her own body, traversing, tracing, and puncturing photographic space in a quest to interrogate the boundaries of a body and expand notions of identity. Gina cites her experiences as a multiracial Filipino-American woman in Ohio as a set of formative experiences that led her to photography, larger questions of perception, and how a viewer perceives difference or absence, or the act of the process of assimilating or the process of being accepted. Her work of large-scale photo tableau environments and drawings on backdrop paper expand our understanding of portraiture and what photography can be. Gina employs symbolic themes and formal elements such as the void, orifice, and the grid, in addition to heightened awareness of color and repetitive patterns. She presents strategies of abstraction, mark-making, and tracing of her own silhouette and her body bound in reflective tape to investigate the dynamics of identity and the self. Her images with text activate photographic conditions, including replica, representation, flatness and volume, presence and absence, illusion and the real, desire and repulsion. The third artist in this exhibition is Gigi Bio, a New York-based artist. Inspired by the life, rhythms, and constant flow of everything around, Gigi is surrounded by mass cultures, bustling streets, speeding traffic, old buildings being torn and transformed into modern skyscrapers, all juxtaposed in an energetic wave of souls. She observes subtle movements, moments of beauty in transition, building layers of a fragmented reality evolving over time. Her worldview is a product of the past colliding with the present, a fractured moment in time breaking into the now. In search of balance between madness and calmness, she aims to expose the emotional side of human beings in the city streets, pushing the final image into abstraction and reconstructing a new utopia. Her work entitled I Am the Dream My Ancestors Dreamed with Freedom, a conversation on decolonization and remembering ancestors through the arts, was featured at the Queen's Museum. Another exhibit that is a group Asian exhibit curated at Slocum Galleries by another Filipino scholar, Jose Ardevilla, with Black curator Cornelia Whiteside McGee, is The Welcome Home, the Liminal Asian Appalachian Experience. This exhibition was a creative exploration into the geographic, emotional, and psychological journeys of Asian female artists adapting to the liminal realm of the Appalachian life. It honors the overlooked voices of Asian female counterparts in regard to their perspectives of our nation and their complicated settlement in the shifting slopes of Appalachia. The curators defined home as meaning to subject oneself to many doors and portals to pass through, to take pause and to situate oneself between taking stock of the present, engaging the future paths, while careful not to lose the present. There were several Southeast Asian artists in this exhibition. Two of them I already discussed from previous exhibits, Leticia Bajuyo and Sisavon Futbong. The other artists that I would like to discuss are V. No, Elena Olander, and Halidi Salam. So that is the, in the middle of the screen is the installation by Sisavon Futbong of the refugees, and flanking the installation are the works of the next artist, V. No. V is a first-generation Vietnamese-American visual artist, physician, and mom based in Austin, Texas. Her work is an exploration into the various aspects of identity as a nation of immigrants, how memories, trauma, and cultural history can shape our world, and how vulnerability brings truth to the human experience. Living in constant duality, order and chaos, pain and healing, her paintings are often created with vibrant colors and are multi-layered to find balance in her visual storytelling, while engaging the viewers to address emotional, social, and cultural topics in a place of self-reflection and observing beauty in the suffering. This representational work, often autobiographical, creates dialogue about identity, culture, and political issues, while her abstract and conceptual works are based on memories, neuroscience, and human emotions. V is an observer of the human condition. Born to refugee parents in rural Pennsylvania, her passion for the arts was overshadowed by cultural expectations, an interest in the sciences, and the desire to serve others. After establishing a career in medicine, V finally came back to her creative self and began painting in 2015. Another artist in that show was Elena Olander, based in Florida. Elena grew up and was born in Duluth, Minnesota, where there isn't a lot of diversity. And when she moved in the South, she realized how racially Black and white it is. Being a minority, she felt alienated and without a sense of belonging to a place. And this certainly informed her work in having a narrative around Asian diaspora. Elena's mother is Norwegian, while her father is Chinese, Filipino, and Vietnamese. She is married to a Japanese, and her daughter is a multiracial Japanese girl. Elena's work focuses on the subtleties of the human condition and conceptually explores identity, individuality, and gender issues through creative visual narrative. She utilizes contrived scenarios, characterization of her own likeness, intentional use of semiotics, and the psychology of color to build her vernacular. Her goal is to inspire the viewer to break down stereotypes and to look beyond the boundaries of their culture and identity for introspection. Rather than emphasizing what separates us as individuals, Elena hopes to inspire understanding, mindfulness, and connection in what unifies society at large as she explores identity, individuality, gender issues, and societal gaze, as well as social justice. Hyphenated American identity is a theme explored within the bodies of Elena's work as a comparative cultural lens that focuses on Asian diaspora, awareness, and unification. The protagonist in her work takes viewers on a journey into her imagination through gesture, expression, and environment to reveal the many facets of her inner life. So from the figurative, we go back to the abstracted. Khalida Salam is a Islam woman based in Virginia. When she paints, time interacts, fluctuating and tying the physical spaces to memory, the imagination, ancient rituals, and pattern structures. She is an advocate of sacred geometry. Through painting, she acquires a sense of wholeness, a primal and holistic understanding of what it means to be a part of a universal force. The process reaffirms her belief in the potential of all living things to evolve, adapt, and change. What evolves are paintings in which experiences move in fluid coloration through barriers, memories, and identities to surface as visions of personal spaces, places of rest, places of unrest, resonating the identity shifts of the everyday migrant life. She believes that experiences that began prior to our consciousness in the watery wombs of our mothers live within in our later years in moments of recognition. Recognizing this pattern in nature as well as her daily existence and painting in these moments of recognition connects her to the structures of nature, to stories of her forebearers, her beliefs, dreams, and unconscious thoughts, all of which interact collectively rather than serially. She calls it time zones, as it is all at once zones. The act of painting produces these meaningful places for her, where there is a sense of belonging and solace, a personal place in the midst of a communal space. Halidi's family hailed from what used to be East Pakistan and is now Bangladesh. Her book, entitled Between Two Spaces, Reflections on the Spiritual in Art, traces the intellectual and spiritual development of a visual artist living between two cultures, one that she was born and raised in, and the other where she is crystallizing. The last exhibition of Asian art that I will discuss is entitled Manlalakbay, the Filipino Diaspora and Hybrid Identity, another show that I curated a few years ago for Tipton Gallery. The Filipino diaspora is one of the biggest in the world. Hailed as modern heroes, overseas Filipinos have played a critical role in shaping and driving Philippine economic development. Our migrants also bring with them their culture, tradition, values, and worldviews that make them uniquely Filipino. Overseas Filipino, faithful to the Filipino values of pakikipagkapwa-tao and bayanihan, make positive impact through their charitable and volunteer work. By giving back to their native and host countries, they help build a true global community. This was written by the Charge d'Affaires Patrick Chuasato from the Embassy of the Philippines about the show. And I wanted to kind of talk about the three women artists in this exhibition as part of my concluding talk. The first one is Kimberly Acebo Arteche. All three artists are based in California. Kimberly is an educator, cultural worker, and interdisciplinary artist working in photography, installation, social practice, and performance. Her work explores the hybrid cultures formed by technology, movements of immigrants in America, and the way movements through space and spaces has been affected by these two. Technology and the internet has aided Kimberly's search for self and placing herself within today's ethnic and cultural landscape. She manipulates and constructs images through digital processes that allow her to explore the complex burden in our relationship with images and identity. Kimberly is committed to collaboratively creating decolonial practices within arts institutions while creating visibility and providing resources for emerging Asia-Pacific American and BIPOC artists. Another artist in the exhibition is Stephanie Sihuko. The work that we featured is her series Cargo Cults, a photographic series that revisits historical ethnographic studio portraiture via fictional display, using mass-manufactured goods purchased from American shopping malls and restyled to highlight popular fantasies associated with ethnic patterning and costume. The series involves the exploration of neutral color palettes and patterning in a loose relationship to the impossibility of neutrality in politics and social spheres. Influenced by dazzle camouflage, a World War I era technique of graphic treatments applied to the sides of battleships, as well as traditional ethnic patterns, the object silhouettes are disrupted or made more starkly outlined, preventing their ability to fade completely away. The 21st century dazzle camouflage hints at a globalized vision that reflects the complexities of migrations and colonizations. Using critical wit and collaborative co-creation, Stephanie's project leverages open source systems, shareware logics, and flows of capital in order to investigate issues of economies and empire. Lastly, Jennifer Wolford makes work about hybridity, history, gender, and global culture as the intercultural creative logic of a Filipino-American raised in Hong Kong, the UAE, Malaysia, and California, as well as that of a longtime educator in a diverse range of communities. This intercultural logic also requires interdisciplinary approaches. One project might be drawings and videos about Filipino nurses and immigration. Another project, a boisterous performance with a rowdy female crew commanding public space with her collective mail order brides, or MOB. Regardless of approach, the constants in her work are imagination, humor, a crisp visual approach, and a healthy appreciation for the absurd. The legibility of illustration and the appeal of popular cultural motifs are frequent strategies in Jennifer's work. She often seeks out a shorthand vernacular to ease her audience into potentially difficult, complex conversations. Collaboration and camaraderie are integral parts of Jennifer's practice. She does not consider herself an artist in isolation, but rather studio solitude always expands into engagement with a broad range of voices, often underrepresented in the arts, with projects share this spirit of exchange, play, and cooperation. To conclude, the significance of visibility and exposure lies in its invaluable potential to combat ignorance, fear, and discrimination, which all leads to systemic racism and violence. Asianics and other hyphenated Americans are often discriminated and neglected due to their in-between identities. Half of this and half of that, denoting incompleteness, inadequacy, or not being enough. Reflecting on the work of Southeast Asian American artists provides tangible evidence of the creative agency of art and its empowering influence on the identity and visibility. Adaptation strategies through artistic means create paths that may not always be visible, yet are significant in the journey to creating oneself. Maraming salamat po.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ms. Carlotta Contreras-Koterbay, for your enlightening and inspiring talk on adapted Southeast Asian women artists. Your insights and expertise have provided us with a deeper understanding and appreciation of the contributions and challenges faced by Southeast Asian women artists in the art world. Your passion and commitment to promoting cultural diversity, gender equity, and social justice through art are truly inspiring and commendable. All right. Okay. So we would like to take this time to also thank our 5 esteemed speakers, including, of course, our last speaker, Carlotta Contreras-Koterbay, for sharing their knowledge and expertise on diverse yet interconnected topics related to Southeast Asian culture, nature, heritage, and art. So we learned so much about the significance of Nilad and its traditional uses, the beauty and importance of Southeast Asian floral icons, the search for the tallest tree of Taiwan, the richness and relevance of Philippine epic literature, and of course, the adaptations and innovations of Southeast Asian women artists. So each speaker has provided us with a unique perspective and insights on the different aspects of Southeast Asian culture and heritage. So we hope that the knowledge and insights gained from this event will continue to inspire and inform us in our future endeavors. Okay, so now we actually do have certificates to be presented to our esteemed speakers. So maybe please share that on the screen. Okay, awesome. So first we have Dr. Honey Libertine Achanzar-Labor, who spoke about Southeast Asian NILAD. Okay, congratulations, Dr. Achanzar-Labor, and thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Next, we have Dr. Pastor Malabrigo, who spoke about Southeast Asian floral icons. So congratulations, Dr. Malabrigo, and thank you for sharing your expertise with us. Next, we have Dr. Ko Fang Chung, who spoke about searching for the tallest tree of Taiwan, Ernest Wilson's Pearl of the Orient. So well done, Dr. Ko Fang Chung, and thank you for enriching our knowledge about the cultural heritage of Taiwan. Next, we have Dr. Matthew Santa Maria, who spoke about the Ibong Adarna and the Epic and Philippine Southeast Asian cultural roots. So thank you so much, Dr. Santa Maria, for your inspiring and informative presentation on the rich cultural roots of the Philippines. Last but not the least, we have Ms. Carlota Contreras-Koterbay, who spoke about adapted Southeast Asian women artists. So well done, Ms. Carlota Contreras-Koterbay, and thank you for sharing your insights on the creativity and resilience of Southeast Asian women artists. So congratulations again to all of our speakers. We will now proceed with the group photo for this momentous occasion. So to our speakers, if you're still here with us, please turn on your camera so that we can take a picture. Okay, to our tech team, just give us a cue. Yes, you will have we will have a photo opportunity with everyone in a bit. Thank you for asking, Angela. Okay, let me see. Are all the speakers here? Okay, so I think the others have left.
Dr. Chung was here earlier.
Yeah, he was here earlier, but not anymore. Okay, so let me take the picture now. Let me just fix the screen. Okay. Okay. Okay, to our speakers. 1, 2, 3, smile. Awesome. Okay, so now as requested, let's take a picture with all the participants. But we're not yet done. We're still proceeding with the Q&A after. But yes, let's take a picture with everyone. Okay, let me just fix the screen. Okay, so to all our guests, if you can turn on your camera and then let's take a quick picture. Yes, we'll have a Q&A after. Okay, you can turn on your cameras. You can proceed with the photo op now. All right. Okay. Everyone, turn on your cameras, please. Okay. Thank you. Okay. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, smile. Awesome. Okay, the next slide. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, the next slide. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, thank you. So now we'll proceed with our Q&A session. So if you have any questions for any of the speakers, please feel free to send them in the chat box and we will read them so that our speakers can answer your questions. Okay, so just a reminder to please keep your questions relevant to the topics discussed by our speakers today. And let's also keep our questions concise and direct to give more time for our speakers to answer. Okay, so we actually do have a few questions listed now. So the first question is for Ms. Carlota Contreras-Koterbay. So the question goes, in what ways can art be utilized as a form of activism and resistance in the context of social and political issues in Southeast Asia, such as gender-based violence and human rights violations? Again, the question goes, in what ways can art be utilized as a form of activism and resistance in the context of social and political issues in Southeast Asia, such as gender-based violence and human rights violations?
Thank you for the question. That is wonderful. And we, as Filipinos, we have a history of social realism here, where artists have used visual arts and performance art in order to express resistance and dissent from the martial law and all the other social injustices that we have experienced as a people. And one of the two of the exhibition artists that I talked about, Sisavan and Hong An, especially are very political because both of them came from as refugees, or their families came from as refugees, and they have used their creative agencies through fiber, through photography, through archival research, and then innovatively, incorporating other interdisciplinary processes and strategies in order to make this more accessible to the communities. So they have used historical archives and at the same time infused like their family history, their own interpretation, or in Sisavan's case, using abstraction to create visual images of the bombs, for example, like the 80 pieces of work representing the 80 million the bombs that did not that are still active in the lands of Laos. So by doing this, they are creating images that voices the communities injustices and hopes for change and hopes for recognition of some of these unvoiced history or silenced narratives by providing the creative history, the visual history that is not always part of the master narrative. They are providing a visuality, they're providing form to the unheard voices of the community. And that is a very effective form of activism. And for example, with Hong An, she collected posters and images of anti-Asian propaganda and presents it as it is, and then creates engaging, interactive installation opportunities where the viewers can actually interact. They can read the actual text, but at the same time, they can learn other part of history through her interactive installation. So it's very educational, and the artists have a very special potential to create discourse and create safe platforms and create venues where people can discuss politics and history and social trauma that they don't normally discuss in school or other parties or whatever, So it's really a very potent, art is very potent in activism and raising social awareness. And I'm sure my other speakers will probably have some additional comments on that too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Carlotta. Historically, art has always been involved in activism now, and it's wonderful to hear about how these Southeast Asian artists continue to advocate for their personal beliefs and histories through their art. Again, thank you so much, Ms. Carlotta. So we do have a next question for Dr. Santa Maria. So Dr. Santa Maria, in your opinion, how can the study of the Ibang Adarna and Philippine epic literature be used to address contemporary issues such as climate change and social justice in Philippine society? Again, so this question is kind of similar to the question for Ms. Carlotta, so more on like the current issues of the country. So again, the question is, in your opinion, how can the study of the Ibang Adarna and Philippine epic literature be used to address contemporary issues?
I think you're muted.
You're muted.
Thank you very much for that question. And I think that's another chapter or another article to be written. I have actually written something about this, which connects the Ibong Adarna to the idea of biodiversity in the Philippines. If we take a look at the Ibong Adarna, especially the second half, we actually see a lot of animal helpers that help the protagonist, Don Juan, in achieving the things that he needs to achieve in the plot of the story. So we see here that this kind of narrative and the presence of animal helpers actually was probably connected to the context of how embedded Filipinos were in the environment at the time of the writing of the different parts of the Ibong Adarna. We can also emphasize in the Ibong Adarna the fact that there are also quite a lot of bird species in the Ibong Adarna, and it also connects to the idea that the Philippines is the most biodiverse environment, especially when it comes to endemic species of not only of birds but also of other plants and animals. I connect this with the idea proposed by the Professor Grace Odal, who spoke about the idea of pakikipagkapwa sa buong kalikasan, because the Philippines is so biodiverse, and if we extend the idea of kapwa not only to people but across species, then perhaps we will be in a much better position in our environment, and as well as in relating to the idea of facing the challenges that we have today, especially climate change, and of course the rising of sea levels and so many other things. I hope I was able to answer your question. Thank you very much.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Santa Maria. Okay, so we do have quite a few more questions actually, so let's try to fit in our time. So we have a question for Professor Malabrigo. Okay, so this is medyo Miss Universe question. No? So, Dr. Malabrigo, if you are given the chance to talk to the President of the Philippines, what will you suggest to him in order to preserve and enrich our floral landscape? Again, if you are given the chance to talk to the President of the Philippines, what will you suggest to him in order to preserve and enrich our floral landscape?
Yeah, okay. Thanks for this very intriguing question. Really, pang Miss Universe nga. Anyway, one thing, I just would like him to know, or I just would like to tell him that our culture, our lives are dependent on the plants, from our food, clothing, shelter, and plants are already part of our heritage, our culture, and therefore, losing some of the plants, some of our species, again, it seems the animal conservation always has a lot of attention. It creates a lot of engaging for the people, but we should always remember that flora are the habitat of the fauna, and therefore, in fact, even a good example is what we are happening today. The COVID pandemic. The pandemic is actually a zoonotic disease, which resulted most likely because of the destruction of our forest, because of biodiversity degradation. The people are now competing with space, in space with fauna. The fauna, our animals are being forced to escape or to transfer habitat, and that's where some zoonotic diseases occur. So we need to save, we need to protect and conserve our forests, our plants, to save and protect as well the fauna and our health as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malabrigo. So, I know if you get a chance to talk to the president of the Philippines, you know what to ask him. Thank you so much. Okay, so to ask our next question, we have Corrie.
Okay, so our next question is actually for Dr. Achanzar-Labor. So the question is, how can the promotion and preservation of cultural heritage related to NILAD contribute to the development of sustainable tourism in the Philippines? And what are some of the potential risks and benefits of such initiatives?
All right. Thank you for the question, Corey. Well, my response can be taken in two directions. Well, since in my talk earlier, I spoke of two possible NILA plants, right? So as far as the first part of my paper is concerned, it had to do with the NILA mangrove, no? So it's commonly known as NILA, but as per Ambet Ocampo and Carmen Guerrero was saying, it's actually called NILA, no? So in that case, I discussed earlier in my paper that it has been very much used as it can very much be a platform, no, for environmental advocacy, you know, and this advocacy can very much be can really provide positive to not only Manila, but yeah, the greater the impact, but the environs as well, no? Like from all the way from Bulacan and even the airport project, right? Precisely, nagingalo siya, no? It caused a lot of the loss of a number of mangroves in the area of Manila Bay, no? Which covers not only Manila, but it extends all the way to Bulacan and other parts, no? So yes, so definitely a Manila with more mangroves, Manila Bay with more mangroves can be more pleasing to the eyes. So it can be more you were asking in terms of related to tourism, right? So it would be more attractive at the very least, and visually, but at the same time, it would also allow cleaner air to breathe, right? So, but as regards the other NILA that I ended my paper with, it has to do with NILA, which aims for, or which can be used as a platform. Now, this is the NILA indigo plant, which can be used as a platform for greater ASEAN integration. Because I showed in my paper that precisely if we push for this particular NILA concept, that it would show that we really have a lot of common, of shared tradition among countries in Southeast Asia. So either way, we see the potential for their use. So I'm not my paper didn't really go through, or didn't mean to make the two options like clash to one another. I was just presenting how these two particular possible etymological or roots or toponyms for Manila can be of much use in various advocacies. So I can relate it also to what Carlotta was talking about earlier, but yeah, so definitely the arts can be of use to in promoting it, and these actually what we've been doing in the Faura project, by teaching or by promoting skills and teaching them art processes. Now we incorporate the discussion of NIDA or of flora, to make them also to make it a subject matter of their initial artworks, or initial crafts, in order to address both not only craft making but also heritage, and yes, tourism. Tourism, if they can come up with cultural artworks, I mean with art forms which can be of which can bear with it data on heritage, then it would be something that would also be they can be merchandised for tourists, for friends, and it can also be a platform, and then this merchandise can also be a platform for heritage promotion, and yeah, I want to, I guess this is also this may be my platform for asking a Miss Universe question still to Dr. Malabrigo. And I wanted to ask earlier whether, because he ended your talk earlier with discussing how the rafflation is being used in Malaysia and other countries and other neighboring countries. Like we saw them in their clothing, right? Like, I'm just wondering whether UP-LB, no, has parang started the use of or has incorporated reflation in any let's say any material or any merchandise, or of course I know that your UP-LB is doing a lot, no, in terms of discussing all our heritage, flora, no, in terms as far as in terms of talks, no, like what you did wonderfully earlier, but I'm just wondering whether it has also been used as a parang as a design motif, no, in any or it's something which we still have to work, which we can like parang discuss and push or come up with a project on. Yes, Mr. Malabriga, thank you.
Yes, ma'am, none so far po, but only we are starting to popularize not only the rafflesia, but all other iconic flowers. So in our, not commercial, but we have some designs of rafflesia shirts, but it's for our group only, not for commercial purposes. But it would be great really to have our merchandisers, our business partners to venture into the use of our iconic flowers as their design for their merchandise. We already have started some collaboration with other rafflesia enthusiasts, rafflesia biologists within Southeast Asia, and hopefully within the next 2 years we can develop some kinds of those products that we can sell, or we can where we can promote our rafflesia.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Malabrigo. Like perhaps in our future Flores de Mayo festivals or conferences, now we can help in some way to promote those products, right? And sorry, if I unless I answer the question, Corrie, I also just want to say there was one thing that I missed earlier in my presentation. I wanted to acknowledge the some of the photos by Miss Vanessa Liwanag. She was actually in one of the photo in my Abra slide, and I promised to acknowledge that she was my source for the Abra segment, for the one of Tingian, and we hope to go to Abra together to attend the workshop on dyeing sometime July or August. So if she's here, so thank you again, Vanny, for the wonderful slides on the Tingian earlier. So there you go. Thank you, Corrie. That's this. I was just waiting for the question to give me for your question to give me a platform to express my gratitude to Miss Vanny Liwanag. Okay, there you go. Yes, Corrie.
Okay, so actually that's all the time we have for the questions. We do have a few more questions for the speakers, but since we don't have time anymore, we'll just send it through email, and then you can send the answers to us and we'll send it to our guests. All right, thank you so much to our esteemed speakers for providing us with valuable insights and knowledge today. We hope everyone has learned a lot from this conference.
And now we've come to the end of our program. But before we close, we would like to remind everyone to answer the evaluation form that will be flashed on our screen. There you go.
So your feedback is essential for us to improve and create better events in the future.
That's right, Cha. So we also want to let you know that only those who have answered the evaluation form will be eligible to receive a certificate of participation.
And please take note that there is a fee for the certificate of participation. So for the local participants, it will cost 150 pesos, while local students will only have to pay 100 pesos. For foreign participants, the fee is $10. $10 US.
Okay. We would also like to thank everyone for attending this conference, especially our speakers and guests from different parts of the world.
On behalf of the Faura project, we would like to extend our sincerest gratitude to everyone who made this conference possible. Our speakers, participants, and organizers have worked tirelessly to bring this event to fruition.
And with that, we officially close the first plenary session of the Faura Project's 2023 International Flores de Mayo Festival and Conference.
We hope to see you all later at 1 p.m. for our second plenary session. And just like this morning, our third plenary session will begin tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you po. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for the speaker. Thank you for the wonderful
Maraming
talk.
salamat. And good
Yeah.
night.
Good night, Carl. Hello,
Yeah,
Matthew.
it's like it's 12 midnight. Well, it's almost morning now for me again.
Morning
But
again.
thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Maraming salamat.
Mitzi was here earlier, Matthew, and then she said that she was so glad to see you, yeah, to be here, seeing you here. So, salamat, Doc Pat.
Ate, I have a question. The
Sure,
link
sure.
for tomorrow, is it the same as the link
Yes.
for
So
today?
all the online activities we have the same link. So it's not, yeah, it's going to be really easy for everyone. And for the of course for the certificate of appreciation for our guests. So that's not to be paid for, no. I mean, we will just be sending it to you online, no. Yeah. So what chat earlier was saying has to do with our online participants, no? The one listening to us, no. But for us, of course, expect it in your email anytime soon. Thank you very much again for all the beautiful talks that we had this morning. A wonderful plenary one. Okay. Thank you to Cha and Corrie for guiding us throughout the show. Yeah, I mean the event. Okay.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Yung merchandise Doc Pat next year. Pag-usapan natin. Okay. Okay, bye. Ano ba to? Ayan.